Hey guy, how are you all beautiful people are doing? Hope all of you are doing fine, and yes, this is the next season of creating Naruto comics in Naruto world. Akaban was graduated from the University of Arts and Design in the 21st century, then suddenly traversed into the Naruto's world. By bringing my knowledge of arts and my love of Naruto comic, I decided to recreate Naruto comic here. So let's start without any delay. She believed in Black Zetsu words. On the one hand, Black Zetsu rescued him from the hidden stone village he hated, allowing him to see the sun again. On the other hand, Black Zetsu seemed very reliable, at least for a 10-year-old. Therefore, he started to communicate with the four-tailed beast in his body while running. However, Black Zetsu knows that Akaban's water-style attainments are equally terrifying. That kid is a complete genius, and Ashi's current attributes are not an opponent at all. He knew that Ashi couldn't run away, so he wanted to use Ashi as a decoy for him to flee. If Ashi takes the initiative to free the tail beast, or even release it completely, Konoha has to reseal the four tails. And at that time, the tail beast belongs to Can Hidden Stone Village and Konoha still be at peace? As for Ashi, he is just a tool, anyway, it can't be taken away, and the waste utilization can be regarded as the last effort. Black Zetsu secretly said in his heart. Akaban didn't know Black Zetsu's thoughts, but he knew that this guy wouldn't just watch him catch Ashi easily, and the turbulent chakra he felt from Ashi's body was also not right. From his turbulent chakra, he will probably forcibly use the tailed beast transformation. FCK. He cursed inwardly. In the past, Akaban may have no other way except to use his main Gekyo Sharingan to control the enemy, but now it is different. And Ashi is only a 10-year-old child, and it is not difficult to control him with illusion. Of course, he couldn't do it by himself. No matter how strong his Keki Genkai Genjutsu is, it is only Genjutsu in the end. With the tailed beast and Black Zetsu interfering at the same time, his success rate is not going to be high, so he has to rely on the power of the Dream Tapper. Summoning Jutsu. The little Dream Tapper emerged from the summoning jutsu and found himself running. Akaban, are you taking me for a run? Little Tapper asked naively. Don't talk nonsense, immediately use the secret technique, and use Genjutsu with me to control the three goals in front. Young Ashi, the Four Tails and Black Zetsu, exactly three. Akaban mobilized his mana, and after feeling the spiritual connection of the Black Tapper secret technique, he quickly took out the drawing board and ran while painting. Although he can directly use Genjutsu, but if there is a medium, it can increase a lot of power, especially since his brush and drawing board are chakra weapons. In the next second, young Ashi was slightly startled, and the chakra in his body stagnated. And Black Zetsu also fell into the illusion. His illusion is very peculiar, it seems to be an anime-like thing. The beginning is a mountain falling from the sky, suppressing a woman under the mountain, and then a child keeps crying. What does it mean? Black Zetsu felt that if Akaban had something to say, he vaguely guessed about the content of this illusion. He originally wanted to leave the illusion directly, but when he saw this opening, he couldn't help but want to know the content behind it and wanted to continue watching it for a while. But it's gone. The illusion is gone. Black Zetsu was stunned and quickly cancelled the illusion. This is not difficult. After all, his physique is very special, and the effect of illusion on him is not so strong. Moreover, Akaban controls 3 by 1 person, and he doesn't use much energy here, most of which are controlled by the little Tapper. Because of this, the story of Rabbit Goddess needs to be delayed. But there is no need now. Because Akaban had already dealt with young Ashi and was dealing with the four tails in his body with all his heart. Originally, the four tails had been subjected to heavy sealing techniques. Previously, because young Ashi wanted to let him out, there was a little looseness. But now that both are controlled by Genjutsu, there is no room for chaos. Black Zetsu gritted his teeth. What the hell did you show me? This was the first time he spoke in front of Akaban. The damn guy not only disturbed his plan, but also gave an endless story, but he still wanted to know the content of that story. Want to know? Guess it. Akaban smiled slightly, and he was already in front of the stunned young Ashi. He separated a shadow clone. The main body was responsible for the suppression of illusions, and the shadow clone used the 5-element seal to disrupt the chakra inside Ashi's body. However, at this time, Black Zetsu began to control the chakra in Ashi's body. Fire, Earth-style chakra. Combine. Lava release, burning river. Akaban frowned slightly, and the shadow clone temporarily changed its seal, changing from a sealing technique to a water prison technique. Before she spewed out magma, a huge water prison trapped him. Then, Thunder Devil Fruit, Thunder and Lightning. This kind of mentally retarded belief in others requires a professor's power. The water prison technique itself has a certain imprisonment effect, not to mention that Akaban used it to cooperate with the power of the Thunder Devil Fruit, but for a moment she let out a mournful scream, and he also broke away from Akaban Genjutsu. In the next second, Akaban quickly made a seal. Thanks to his daily drawing, his knot printing speed is very fast, and he completed the sealing technique not in a short time. 5 elements seal. With a sealing technique, the chakra of the tail beast inside the Ashi body was imprisoned. Black Zetsu saw something bad and wanted to escape from Ashi. But how could Akaban make him go so smoothly? His arm turned into thunder and lightning, and he reached out to grab it. Zizi tilde. Damn you, kid, I won't let you go. Black Zetsu's physique is very special. The devil fruit of thunder can hurt him, but it cannot be lethal. After all, he can integrate with the earth and use the earth to dissipate the power of thunder and lightning and reduce damage. Therefore, Black Zetsu still ran away. But Akaban didn't care. It was never easy to catch Black Zetsu anyway. That guy was slippery as a looch, but there might be some hope if Uzumaki Maito was the one to seal him with her sealing jutsu. As for him, forget it. Unless he used the dead demon consuming seal, he couldn't touch Black Zetsu's shadow. Akaban cherishes life very much and doesn't want to die with Black Zetsu using the forbidden jutsu, so he can only watch that guy leave. However, using the illusion technique to make Black Zetsu feel sick, and then using electrotherapy to make Black Zetsu feel pain for a moment, it is already a worthwhile trip, and the goal has been completed. The four-tailed Jinchuriki is alive and breathing. My lord. It's over, contact other people, you can retake the team and return to the village. Akaban maintained the water prison technique, and at the same time stretched out his hand and electrocuted Ashi several times. Ashi's hair was scorched and his muscles trembled. The guards who arrived later swallowed their saliva, seeing the scene. So cruel. That's the Jinchuriki. If it's them who was being electrocuted, they may lose half of their life. After continuing the electrotherapy for a few seconds, Akaban let go and deactivated the effect of the water prison technique. The young Ashi was lying on the ground. He had passed out, but his muscles were quivering unconsciously. This was because he had been electrocuted for too long. It's a pity that this technique is useless for Madara, otherwise I want him to experience the power of Professor Me. Akaban sighed regretfully. Of course. The Fruit of Thunder can not only be combined with the water prison technique, in fact, but most water styles can also be combined with the Fruit of Thunder, because the Fruit of Thunder is not a ninjutsu ability, and it does not need to be used through the seal. It's not easy for everyone to search, but it's easy to go back. Through the gods, sentry booths and other strongholds, all the areas were notified in a moment. As for Akaban, he had already brought Ashi back to Konoha. To do this, he activated the Yin seal so that he had enough chakra to appear at the Konoha. Back in Konoha, Akaban was still thinking about Rabbit Goddess, and he wondered if Black Zetsu understood this story. But from his hostility, he should have understood something from it, otherwise he wouldn't be so angry when he left. That guy has lived for 1,000 years, and he has already practiced his emotions and anger. Only the things that he cares about will make him do this. It's time to accelerate things. My Eternal Mangekyo is coming out soon. When I redeem the Eternal Mangeki Sharingan, then redeem Hashirama Cells and Rinnegan. I can get Rinnegan without side effects. And as long as I don't use Ten Tails Jinchuriki, how can I be afraid of Black Zetsu? A trace of coldness appeared in Akaban's eyes. Smart people are not easy to deal with, especially Black Zetsu, who is calm and capable. He must lose his calm before revealing a fatal flaw. And Rinnegan. Akaban is a little different from Madara. Madara does not have the physique of the Uzumaki family, but he has the physique of the Uzumaki family and the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. So it shouldn't be painful fusing Hashirama cells. So he can definitely obtain the Rinnegan. He dragged Ashi like a broken bag, regardless of whether it was midnight, and went to Anbu headquarters. Within a second, an Anbu ninja appeared. This guy is the four-tailed Jinchuriki, who will be assigned to a sealing team to guard him. Later you will ask Hokage-sama how to deal with it. Yes. The Anbu ninja didn't dare to be careless and quickly called his companions with a secret signal. Not long after, many Anbu ninjas appeared and brought the unconscious Ashi into the Anbu cell. The 5 elements seal has been applied to Ashi, so there is no need to worry about him waking up temporarily to escape. If they can't even deal with this kind of captive, then these Anbu would have been killed by Danza himself. Akaban was a little tired. Continuous use of ultra-long distance with his flying thunder god jutsu, and coming back with a Jinchuriki consumes a lot of his chakra, plus he is not a hard-working person, and now he just wants to go back to sleep. It was the first time since he became a ninja when he left on a mission in the middle of the night. He didn't think he was in a fight before, but when he returned to the village, he was very sleepy and he wanted to go back to sleep right away. In fact, he knew that the third Hokage probably didn't sleep at the moment. A Jinchuriki flees to the country of fire. This can be a big or a small matter, but Konoha's determination to capture it alive means that he is very important to Konoha's strategy. As a decision maker, the third Hokage will of course be extremely nervous. If there is no news tonight, he might have difficulty falling asleep. But there is no need for Akaban to worry about this. Those Anbu will immediately report the arrest of Jinchuriki, and this matter will definitely be quickly passed to Danza, who he does not know where. The 4-tailed beasts belonged to the Hidden Stone Village, and Konoha's desire to seize it was unrealistic. This would lead to the hatred of most ninja villages, leading to the war in advance. The high probability is still an exchange of benefits. But for the price of Jinchuriki, Onaki will definitely feel distressed for a while. Akaban returned home, explained it to his mother in a short sentence, took a hasty bath, and then lay down to sleep. Get a good night's sleep. The next morning, when he wakes up the next day, he thinks the update from Yamano Izumi will arrive. So I should start preparing for the next update. Why did he think of it the moment he woke up? It's because in the update tomorrow, Jiraiya uses a lot of amazing things. For example, Sage Mode, Sage Arts. What the third Hokage and Danza want most now are these two abilities. After the update tomorrow, they may guess what the three big unexplored Sage regions mean. Each Sage region contains the method of Sage Mode. By that time, Jiraiya and Orochimaru finally had time to shine. Hokage-sama, today. A group of ninjas did not return to Konoha until the next day, and Uchiha Yuan came in with a batch of reports, ready to talk about the results of the guards yesterday and the promotion of the sentry booth. As soon as he walked in, he saw the third Hokage sitting in a chair, looking at the comics in a leisurely manner. Compared with his anxious appearance yesterday, it's like he is completely a different person. Hiruzen was completely amazed, and he raised his head when he heard the sound. After looking at them, he pointed to the seat and said, "Yuan, sit down, what's the matter?" "Hokage-sama, you see that this is some actual situation regarding the contact of the guards yesterday, you see." Uchiha Yuan glanced curiously. He just came back from outside, and he didn't know that the comics had been updated, but judging from the title page and the plot of the previous volume, this volume should be the main plot of Jiraiya. Well, it's the exit lead. Uchiha Yuan itching curiously, but unfortunately, there is something important now, so he can't immediately go to the store to buy a copy. Cough, let me hear it. Hiruzen closed the comic in a little embarrassment and accepted the report. After all, people live and die outside. But here, he was caught reading comics in the office and was caught on the spot. Uchiha Yuan sat down and waited for the third Hokage to finish reading the report. From the beginning to the end, Hiruzen put away the report and meditated for a while and said, "It seems that Akaban's thinking is very useful for the security of the country of fire, but if you want to spread it on a large scale, I am afraid may have to ventilate with the daimyo, and most of our guards spread out and even affect the rule of daimyo, so they will probably send someone to do it together, right?" Uchiha Yuan continued. "That's right." Hiruzen nodded and did not conceal it. This kind of thing could not be concealed from the patriarch of Uchiha, let alone the need to conceal it. Then Uchiha Yuan said without hesitation, "We Uchiha have no problem with it. You Uchiha are at a loss, but since you took the initiative to raise this matter after we discussed it with the daimyo and the village, we will not forget Uchiha's credit." Hiruzen smoked a cigarette without going around. Konoha wants to deal with Madara. Uchiha's information is very important, so the Hiruzen are very friendly. Uchiha's foothold in Konoha is now recognized by everyone. This is already a great blessing, and the credit is second. Uchiha Yuan said. "Well, you are also tired. The Jinchuriki's follow-up tasks will be taken over by Danza and the Anbu. Go back and have a rest." Hiruzen rushed to see off the guests. He hasn't finished reading the comic yet, and since Uchiha Yuan already finished what he was going to report, how can he let him continue to stay? Yes. Uchiha Yuan also wanted to rush to buy the comics after leaving the office and wanted to go back to the guard department to direct the overall situation, and there was no time to stay here. And since the third Hokage said so, he got up and left. After seeing him off, Hiruzen reopened the page. He had already seen all of Pain's 6 paths, and Jiraiya had his arm broken before, and then, death. Yes. How can one beat Rinnegan? Even though Jiraiya has Sage Mode and is assisted by 2 Mount Myoboku sages, he still can't win against the Rinnegan. All the reasons are lack of intelligence. It is precisely because there is no intelligence that a strong ninja like Jiraiya is needed to come and investigate, since those weaker ones will only die aimlessly. Unsolvable problem. Turn page by page. When in the end, Jiraiya sank into the sea, Hiruzen unconsciously shed tears. This scene is too sensational for him. Without a doubt, Hiruzen's favorite is Orochimaru, and Orochimaru is recognized. He most hopes to inherit his will is still Orochimaru. As for Jiraiya, he is a wanderer and a ronin, at least Hiruzen sees it this way. However, at the end of the comics, it was precisely Jiraiya who also inherited the will of fire. He devoted his entire life to a period of ethereal prophecy and protection and recovery. Currently, Jiraiya has also completed the first half well. He tried his best. Jiraiya, sighed Tilda. Hiruzen sighed, his mood was very strange. Obviously, this is only a comic, but when he reads it, it feels like it will happen tomorrow. It's as if these are all true. Of course, this is simply impossible. No one can foresee the future, even the great Toad Sage only knows some undetermined future through dreams. In Hiruzen's eyes, this is not so much a prophecy, but a guide. But he has to admit, regardless of comic or reality, without Mount Myoboku, Jiraiya would not be as good as it is now. Except for Hiruzen, many people also have mixed feelings. Such as Tsunade. In the comics, Jiraiya also went away, she seemed to be the lone star in the sky, and there was no one of her peers by her side, but several scourges older than her were still alive and making trouble in the world. More than that, Tsunade's rumors about how bad she is at gambling also spread throughout Konoha. Although she has a high status, some close friends and elders will still make fun of her when they meet. Especially today. After the update, everyone had to ask if there was such a thing when they met her, so Tsunade was so angry that she almost demolished the hospital, so no one dared to ask. There is also Mount Myoboku. Ever since Mount Myoboku opened a worm meal shop in Konoha, the weird worm meal was unpopular at first, and even people who passed by were hiding. But later, the toads adapted to local conditions and learned some tricks from Akaban's gourmet comics. They used various techniques such as deep frying and stir frying, combined with fragrant condiments, Mount Myoboku's special ingredients, side dishes, etc., and gradually attracted a lot of fans. Eaters who eat this kind of unusual food. Due to the booming business, the ties between the toads and Konoha are getting deeper. Basically, there will be 1 or 2 toads suitable for stationing in the store every day. These 2 toads can get the updated comics firsthand, after reading the comics. But today was different. Before they could finish reading the comic, a toad was sent back to Fukasaku and Shima Sage for them to see it. After all, today's content involves a lot of stuff. Fukasaku Sage and Shima Sage each hold a comic, they read it, and then stare at each other, not knowing what to do next. The plot is well drawn and sentimental. When they are in different places, they have to fight side by side with Jiraiya and watch Jiraiya die. Perhaps it is also a mixed mood. But the most important thing now is something involved in the comics. Sage Mode, Sage Art, Mount Myoboku Inheritance, Prophecy, especially the last one. The Prophecy. This is the most amazing ability of the Great Toad Sage. It can see the future. In the eyes of the Mount Myoboku group, this is the secret to saving the world. But now, all those secrets have been exposed in these comic books. The old couple stared at each other for a long time. Then after a moment, Shima Sage was full of anger, and angrily said with a paw of her claws, "I'll go find that kid to settle the account." "Come on, old lady, you know we can't do it. Remember what happened when we ignored the Great Toad Sage warning." Fukasaku Sage let out a long sigh. People who disrupt dreams may also disrupt the future. Last time, the Great Toad Sage met that kid, so why didn't you want to take the opportunity to take that kid's life? Hearing it, Shima Sage choked for a while and didn't know what to say. Although Sage Shima magical powers is strong, she is physically old. It is really inappropriate for her to deal with Akaban. The rest of Mount Myoboku is probably not the opponent of that youngster. After all, that guy's genjutsu attainments. Thinking about this, Shima Sage has a toothache. She thought for a long time, and tentatively said, "Use genjutsu." No, he is an expert in illusion. Moreover, judging from some ninjutsu that appeared before, this kid has already begun to study voice ninjutsu. We may not be able to crack his illusion, plus his flying thunder god jutsu. Fukasaku Sage continued to sigh. No way. Jiraiya said that Uchiha Madara is still alive, and he had a fight with Akaban and Uzumaki Mito before, and was beaten and run to the land of wind. Gamabunta said nonchalantly. What? Fukasaku Sage was slightly surprised to learn about Uchiha Madara, but immediately. Bastard boy, dare to eavesdrop on us. Asshole old man, now is the time to care about this. Gamabunta, please tell me more about Uchiha Madara. Shima Sage's tone is very solemn. In the dream of the Great Toad Sage, Uchiha Madara appeared. Previously, she and Fukasaku were puzzled hearing it, but if Uchiha Madara did not die, all of this would be very possible. But firstly, doesn't it mean that Madara might have Rinnegan? Jiraiya is also not very clear about it. He is floating in the sea right now. Gamabunta took a mouthful of cigarettes calmly. But seeing Fukasaku and Shima, was so angry that they wanted to tear him, he put down his cigarette in a panic and continued, but he can be sure that Akaban is very strong now, and Madara is said to have Rinnegan. Why didn't you say it before? Fukasaku Sage complexion is gloomy and uncertain. The two of them didn't even know about such important news. Isn't this cheating? You didn't ask either. Gamabunta said badly. He was drinking with Jiraiya at the time, and both were very drunk. How can he remember it clearly? Besides, if he was not drunk, would Jiraiya tell him the news? Jiraiya, that kid, looks no-brainer but is actually very clever. Fukasaku Sage thought for a while. Anyway, there was no conflict with Kurama Akaban, the problem is not too big. In addition, he rolled his eyes and said cheerfully, perhaps Kurama Akaban is the child of the prophecy in the mouth of the Great Toad Sage Summer we found out through Jiraiya. Akaban's potential, and Jiraiya, through his own influence, guide Akaban on the path of confronting Madara. Gamabunta rolled his eyes and thought, aren't you ashamed saying it? Is this appropriate? Shima Sage was a little bit frustrated, it was indeed too forceful. It's okay, I'll go to discuss with the Great Toad Sage. Fukasaku Sage shook his chair leisurely after thinking about it, and got up hurriedly after being kicked by Shima Sage and went to where the Great Toad Sage was. The Great Toad Sage is sleeping, but Fukasaku Sage feels that he is about to wake up. This is the experience of hundreds of years of company and service. In the past moments, The great toad sage woke up, his eyes opened faintly, looking around as if he had lost his memory. Seeing the people below, he was about to use the old question. Great Toad Sage Summer, there is no time to crack a joke, a major event happened. Fukasaku Sage knows what the old sage is going to say, it is nothing more than a joke like who are you, but now there is no time to say this. The Great Toad Sage laughed a few times, neither slow nor hurried, and said, "What's the matter, it makes you so panicked? Please read this comic." Fukasaku Sage walks up quickly and presents the comic in front of the Great Toad Sage. This comic book is really small for the Great Toad Sage, but it doesn't get in the way. He is old, but he is not blind, and he can barely see the words and pictures above. Fukasaku Sage turned pages for him, and Great Toad Sage did not say anything, but read quietly, quite calmly. When he finished reading, Fukasaku Sage took a deep breath and said, "Great Sage Summer, what shall we do? The leaked prophecy is one of them and the second. According to Jiraiya, Uchiha Madara is alive and also has a Rinnegan. Oh tilde, that's really a big deal, ha 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 tilde." The Great Toad Sage, Fukasaku Sage doesn't know if it is his old age or it's just hard, that even his laugh is accompanied by drag, and his mouth is serious, but his expression is not at all worried. Had it not been for Madara's news, perhaps he would not have said this. The Great Toad Sage paused for a long time, and said slowly, "I called the young man last time, didn't you understand it already?" "What?" Fukasaku Sage was puzzled and immediately became confused. "The future has long been vague. I may have seen countless things. Something that won't come true can't be called a prophecy. If it leaks, it leaks." The Great Toad Sage lying on the chair said he looked extremely indifferent. He never called himself a prophet. It was the content of the dream. It might or might not come true. The prophecy is just the result of Fukasaku Sage and Shima Sage's own speculation. However, Fukasaku Sage understands it right. The known is obviously more important than the unknown. From this perspective, it may be a good thing to eliminate variables and let the known happen as normal. However, the Great Toad Sage is not as he understands it. After a few seconds of pause, he said slowly, "The future has been changed. If you want to alter it, you can take action as early as the first dream disorder, but how do you know that your corrected path will be on the right track?" This. Fukasaku Sage froze for a moment and then had some clear comprehension. "The last time I met that child, he possessed the aura of Homura in his lineage, and his potential is very high. Even if he is not the child of prophecy, he will have the ability to fight against Madara. If that is the case, there is no need to pursue a misty future." The Great Toad Sage continued to explain. Fukasaku Sage is ashamed. He knew that he had misinterpreted the meaning of the Great Toad Sage in the past. Fortunately, Akaban was indeed strong enough. But after another thought, he felt something was wrong again. The aura of the Sage of Six Paths. Does Kurama clan have anything to do with the Sage of Six Paths? Fukasaku Sage was sluggish and then looked up towards the Great Toad Sage. "Ha ha 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 tilde." The Great Toad Sage laughed softly, and fell into a deep sleep in a blink of an eye, and no longer paid attention to him. Fukasaku Sage closed the comic and fully understood the meaning of the Great Toad Sage. Of course, the abolished prophecies are not counted. Then let it be leaked. If Akaban publishes this content, then he must have made plans for Uchiha Madara and his potential enemies, and Mount Myoboku does not need to interfere. "Old man, how is it? The great toad sage Soma said Akaban may be another child of the prophecy, and Kurama clan's ancestor may have the Sage of Six Paths bloodlines. That's why he has such a powerful spiritual energy. Fukasaku sage said, full of nonsense. Shima sage is a little dumbfounded. The Kurama clan has something to do with Sage of Six Paths. This secret is amazing. But if you think about it carefully, Edo, powerful spiritual energy, and Kekii Genkai seem to have some similarities with Uchiha, of course, only a little bit. So Akaban might really be a descendant of Indra. Then what shall we do next? Shima sage was confused and couldn't think of a way for a while. Fukasaku sage muttered a moment later and said, I will go to Konoha. Madara's ability and talent are on par with Indra and even surpassed. In any case, Akaban is Mount Myobaku's primary goal, and everything else is not important. For example, the truth about Akaban's mysterious bloodlines. Konoha Comic Shop. Akaban finished today's comic update and was about to leave the shop and go out for a while. After the comic was updated today, a bunch of people came to ask about Sage Mode and Sage Arts. As for the death of Jiraiya, everyone should just read the plot and the excitement. After all, the real Jiraiya is very comfortable living abroad, there is no danger at all, so they don't need to worry about sadness. But what follows is another highlight. Itakai and Sasuke's love and killing each other. At present, Sasuke does not have a main Gekyo Sharingan. So he is definitely inferior to Itakai in terms of strength. It is not so much that Sasuke finds Itakai, it is more that Itakai survives until Sasuke arrives, and induces Sasuke to find his trace. Before meeting Sasuke, he even went to see Naruto and buried a key trick. This section is not easy to draw. Fortunately, I stand on the shoulders of giants. Akaban got up and stretched. He walked out of the comics shop, planned to eat something in his own hall, and then want to go home to sleep for an afternoon, but not long after sitting down, a toad jumped in front of him and sat down in his own position. Since Jiraiya was not here, Fukasaku sage had to come by himself. Now in Konoha, everyone is not surprised by the toad family, and there is nothing to see on the road. It just feels that the toad they saw today is a bit old and looks unusual. But some people who have read the comics recognize him. This is Fukasaku sage. Fukasaku sage, well, what would you like to drink? Akaban was a little surprised but quickly understood the key points, turned the menu, and let Fukasaku sage order it himself. Fukasaku sage ordered a glass of juice casually. Before the juice came, he squatted and said, Akaban, today the great Toad Lord has a new prophecy. Oh. Akaban raised his eyebrow, and the start of the conversation was unexpected. The great sage said, you may be the new child of the prophecy, and you may have the bloodline of Sage of Six Paths on your body. I guess it should be from Indra descendants, perhaps related to the Kurama clan. Fukasaku sage said in a low voice. But his words made Akaban very shocked and couldn't help but curse in his head. FCK. What a big fart Indra bloodline. The Indra bloodline you're saying was what I obtained with great effort. Don't be shocked, the great Toad Sage and Sage of Six Paths was never wrong. You must have a bloodline of Sage of Six Paths, but it's hidden deeply and the bloodline is relatively thin. Fukasaku sage said. So, is that so? I don't know at all. The history of the clan doesn't record this. Akaban muttered to himself. Okay, it's all done. This means that the last time he went to Mount Myobaku to face the great Toad Sage, he found the cryptic aura on his body. However, The Great Toad Sage's attitude is similar to Danza's remarks. As long as it is beneficial to the Konoha, it doesn't matter what he is hiding and they turn a blind eye to it. This is the hidden meaning expressed by Fukasaku. Because Akaban knows that the Great Toad Sage will not help him make up lies, at most he will pretend to be confused. What a good toad! When Indra left, no one knows what happened afterwards. Asura lineage is biased towards sage body, and your clan's spiritual energy is strong. It should be of Indra lineage. Fukasaku's sage whispered. Sure enough, as long as your strength is enough, some details will be ignored and can be passed through with eyes closed. But the underlying meaning is obvious. It doesn't matter if there are any problems in the bloodline. Mount Myoboku is fighting on one shoulder, but Uchiha Madara's problem, Akaban, will also go up. At least the identity of this son of prophecy, he can't escape. Akaban took a deep breath and said in shocked, the Great Toad Sage said that I am child of the prophecy, which is a bit hard to believe for me. But please rest assured, Uchiha Madara is the enemy of Konoha. Whether it's Konoha or for Ninja World, I will destroy him. That's good. If nothing else, I'll go back first. There are still a lot of things to do in Mount Myoboku. Fukasaku Sage got up, pondered for a moment and took a sharp sip in the glass of juice. Delicious. So, he sat down, drank the juice, and hopped away. After thinking for a while, Akaban got up and went to the Uchiha clan. With the banner of Mount Myoboku, of course, he will use it and asked Uchiha Yuan about Mangekyo and Eternal Mangekyo. If he really wants to fight with Madara for life and death, how can he ignore the origins of Sharingan and Rinnegan? Of course, it is a matter of life. Now, Mount Myoboku is taking this to express its position, just to pull the flag on a tiger skin. In this way, in the future, if he accidentally awakened his Sharingan, Uchiha wouldn't doubt him, and the relationship between him and Uchiha will not be as embarrassing as Kakashi and the Uchiha in the comic. Uchiha Yuan has been very busy these 2 days, and rarely rests in the clan, so he can go to the guard headquarters. Akaban had a very wide network of contacts in the guard, and it didn't take long for him to contact Uchiha Yuan. Uchiha Yuan knew Akaban quite well. This person wouldn't leave his castle if it's not important, and if he takes the initiative to come to his door, something definitely will happen, and it is usually a major event. Of course, this kid has a lot of manipulation in his mind. When Uchiha Yuan went back to the office from the outside, he took a deep breath before entering the door and stabilizing his mind. This is his experience after dealing with Akaban. Before chatting with this kid, you have to calm your mind first, because there may be some shocking news coming out of his mouth. For example, last time, when he heard their clan founder Uchiha Madara is alive. Next, he forced a smile. As soon as he entered the door, Uchiha Yuan instantly smiled and walked over cordially and enthusiastically. Akaban, I have to go to you if you don't find me. The guards are really thankful for your help in designing things, otherwise, there is no such thing as a comprehensive construction plan. You jest, these are all the credit of my father. Akaban smiled slightly. Uchiha Yuan smiled and said nothing, whose credit he hasn't counted yet. However, in the team, it did claim that it was Kurama Izumi's idea so that Izumi could sit more firmly in his position. Akaban greeted for a while, and went straight to the subject and said, Uncle Yuan, I am here. I want to prove some speculations about the Sharingan, and I will use it in the next update. For the next update, are Itakai and Sasuke next? Uchiha Yuan was stunned for a second or two. Some things will be used for Sharingan. There is no doubt that it is the story of the Uchiha family. In the comics, Uchiha only has brothers and Madara. Combined with the recent plot, there is no need to think too much. Yes, Itachi will die and will tell Sasuke a bunch of secrets about the Sharingan, including Mangekyo Sharingan, and the kind of eye above the Mangekyo. Akaban lowered his voice. Even if these contents will be updated tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, they are still very hidden secrets and can't be said loudly. But Uchiha Yuan's eyes widened after hearing this. The Mangekyo is nothing more than a secret, but the eyes above the Mangekyo, he is not even sure about it as the patriarch of the clan. After a long period of silence, he said, the eyes above the Mangekyo are just speculation at the moment, and we don't know what its ability is. I'm afraid it will cause a commotion. The sage of Mount Myoboku found me after learning about Uchiha Madara and revealed some secrets. And they revealed that Indra's Sharingan evolution was finally 6 Tomo's Sharingan. Akaban has no pressure right now. And no matter what comes out of his mouth, he can just toss the pot to the Toad Sage in Mount Myoboku, and it is impossible for Uchiha Yuan to go to Mount Myoboku to verify it. Besides, it doesn't matter even if he verifies it, because what he said are facts. 6 Tomo. Uchiha Yuan's eyes widened, and he quickly thought of many things. Madara, Izuna. What happened back then has been passed down to the present. No one knows the truth, except that after Izuna died in the end, Madara became stronger. If it is because of 6 Tomo, Uchiha Yuan thought of a bad thing. Is it a brothers' fight? So that means after the fight between Sasuke and Itachi, will a 6 Tomo Mangekyo Sharingan be born? Previously we guessed that Madara's Mangekyo Sharingan may not decrease his vision, so I temporarily named it Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Akaban said. Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, wouldn't Madara kill you if he read it? Uchiha Yuan thought for a while. After releasing this news, Uchiha's side will inevitably cause an uproar, and Uchiha Madara should have the biggest impact. After all, this is a secret that belongs to him alone. As a result, Akaban's risk of being assassinated further increased. Madara is getting older. So he wouldn't take a shot himself with Grandma Mito here. Also, the Fukasaku sage said that I am. After Akaban finished speaking, he carelessly mentioned Fukasaku sage's words. His tone seemed as if he didn't believe it, but he simply shared this rather ridiculous thing with Uchiha Yuan, and by the way, laughed at the Mount Myoboku sage who said it. But although Akaban didn't believe it, Uchiha Yuan couldn't do so. Is it really possible that the Kurama clan are also descendants of Indra? The news is a bit breaking news. Uchiha Yuan's first reaction was that it was impossible, but after thinking about it, Mount Myoboku has a very big background. According to him, he understands that the Great Toad Sage in comics is real. The Great Toad Sage who has lived for 1,000 years is an exaggeration to say that he knows everything, but he definitely knows more than Uchiha. In addition, the Kurama clan is indeed good at illusion, and their Keki Genkai are born with strong spiritual energy, which is similar to Uchiha. It is said that the Kurama clan will also generate negative spiritual monsters, Edo. So it's not impossible. The more Uchiha Yuan thinks about it, the more he feels that Fukasaku sage's words have a certain probability. It could not be said that the Kurama clan had something to do with Uchiha very, very long ago. Of course. Just like Senju and Uchiha, they were relatives dating back to the oldest period, but these relatives have been passed down for hundreds of years and thousands of years. At most. Coincidentally, you also have the blood of Indra. Moreover, it seems that all the talents of the Kurama clan to the generation of Akaban belong to Akaban, and none of the others awakened the five senses controls. Such a clan, even with Indra bloodline, is very thin, otherwise, it would have awakened Sharingan. But Akaban is different. This kid is so talented that he swallowed Edo in one bite, and his attainments in their Kekii Genkai even surpassed his ancestor. And if he really had the blood of Indra, he might continue to surpass Madara. Thinking of this, he couldn't help laughing wryly. When that day comes, I am afraid he can't help but cheer. After all, Akaban's strength has been improved, and his confidence in dealing with Madara will increase a bit. Oh, the more I understand this, the more I feel insignificant. Uchiha Yuan sighed. When he first awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan, he felt that he was not far from Madara, but reality told him that he was at least one Akaban away from Madara. The high mountains stand up. After ventilating with Uchiha, Akaban was satisfied, with no expression on the surface, just as if he had told a normal story. Uchiha Yuan knows the general plot of tomorrow in advance, and has some ideas in his mind. It is best to let everyone read it alone tomorrow. If they read it together, some emotions can't burst out. He still wants to use these plots to awaken a few 3-tomo Sharingan from his clansmen, and it is best to be the younger generation of 13 or 14 years old. As for what's above the Mangekyo Sharingan, he doesn't want to think about it for now, since he will know it when he reads the updates. About what Fukasaku sage said, he didn't tell it within his clan. Although the Kurama clan has cleared up a wave, but because their Kekii Genkai awakening is relatively low, there are many people who will ponder all kinds of ways, and it is true that these stupid things may be true. Which made it difficult for him to tell his clan. When Akaban returned to the shop, he was naturally condemned again, because he actually only completed 2 or 3 chapters, and most of the work was done by his clones. His clone completed creating 7 updates for Naruto that made it a total of 10 updates for tomorrow, and its content which just completed the battle between Sasuke and Itachi, and at the same time, there are some preparations and transitions for the next plot. For One Piece, because he already redeems the Navy 6th style, its update got lessened. However, with 10 chapters a day, the speed is still very good, and he is fully satisfied. Since Akaban's 4 clones worked, Yamano Izumi has been overwhelmed every day. Recently, he has been instructed to expand, reorganize, and upgrade the publication factory, which has caught up with Akaban's progress. Their delivery time became more and more fixed, and they arrived at Konoha basically at noon, and went back after the delivery, instead of staying at Konoha. Akaban is no longer responsible for the delivery. As everyone knows, as long as there is no war, he never leaves his house before noon, so Kurama Yunlane takes over all these matters. Uchiha Yuan did not wait for Akaban. Anyway, he was just buying comics. There was no need to wait for this lazy pig to get up, but to ensure that no one would peek in advance, he made a special trip to buy today's comics update. Taking it to the clan back, he first summoned all the children. Before handing out the comics, Uchiha Yuan talked about family, brothers and separation, etc. If you stay in peace for too long, children will not feel too deeply about these, but the turmoil in this era has never stopped. Even children know what it is like to leave and lose brothers and partners. However, in order to maximize the effect, Uchiha Yuan used genjutsu techniques to relive the sweet life of Sasuke and Itachi. Everyone does not know what the situation is. But when the genjutsu is over and after getting the comics, all the children understand that Itachi and Sasuke will be separated. How sweet the illusion scene is, and now the plot of the comics is so cruel. Obviously, he is the elder brother who loves his younger brother so much, but because of all sorts of hardships, he gradually induced him to take his own life. This feeling can no longer be anxious. Even the mystery of Mangekyo and eternal Mangeki Sharingan cannot attract these children's attention, they pay more attention to the plot itself. Watching the last scene, Itachi wobbled weakly, walked to Sasuke from a distance, and poked his forehead in Sasuke's desperate eyes. At this moment, all the children couldn't hold back, some were crying silently, and some were crying in a low voice. Itachi is the elder brother in the comics, but in the minds of these children, he may be a parent, uncle, or elder brother in the family, etc. The identities are different, but how it reaches their heart is the same. As a result, Uchiha Yuan found excitedly that many children had awakened their eyes, and some of the children who had awakened their eyes further enhanced the power of their eyes. Among those who awakened their eyes this time, the youngest was only 7 years old, and the oldest was 11. Maybe not everyone in this group can awaken 3 tomos, but even if there is only 1 tomo, it is already a great force for their family. In Uchiha Yuan's eyes, all children's eyes are treasures. Children are the future of the family. They are young and there are too many uncertainties. Take Obito for example. Before he awakened his Sharingan, who could know that the eyes of Obito are so powerful? Cool. He was so excited that his hands were shaking slightly. Knowing part of the plot for a long time, he is not so keen on the plot of the comics. The only thing on his mind was, the children, the future of their clan. Of course. Older people have different points of susceptibility, but it doesn't matter. Uchiha Yuan thought of a full set of genjutsu content yesterday. Don't even think about running today, just read comics obediently. Itachi is a great ninja. In the Hokage office, Hiruzen gave a long sigh, unconsciously thinking of a reliable companion before. Uchiha Kigami. He was the first person to advocate integration into Konoha, and now Uchiha Yuan is, in a sense, he is the successor of the Kigami will. Like Itachi, Uchiha Kigami dedicated his all to Konoha. Even when he died, he was arranging Sasuke's life. If he dies in the hand of his brother, Sasuke, who kills the S-rank rebel, can return to Konoha, and Konoha will get a powerful ninja with an eternal Mangekyo. That's what Itachi thought. Before the change, Hiruzen would very much approve of Itachi's idea, but now, the example of Orochimaru in the comics makes Hiruzen reject this approach. The more people are arranged to walk according to their expectations, the more they will have different ideas. The same is true for Sasuke. He was not a simple child, he had his own thoughts and ideas, so how could he obediently follow Itachi's expectations? In the end, it may be counterproductive. But the eternal Mangekyo, Konoha would be terrific if they could tinker with this thing. Of course, it's only his delusion. Everyone knows it is too difficult to get these kinds of eyes. Even Madara has to rely on his younger brother's eyes to evolve his Mangekyo. Uchiha now only has Yuan and Ensho who can use Mangekyo. Even if Uchiha wants to try, Konoha will not agree. At this moment, there were a series of footsteps outside, followed by a Chunin who hurriedly entered his office in panic. Hokage-sama, no. It's not good. What happened? Hiruzen frowned slightly. He remembered that this Chunin was a teacher at the ninja academy, responsible for the education of those children. Those children are holding a funeral for Uchiha Itachi on campus. We can't help but come over and ask you. The Chunin teacher said, ashamed. The third Hokage shouldn't be asked for such trivial matters, but they really can't persuade the children. This time, it's Hyaruzen's turn to be shocked. A funeral. He immediately asked again, who is taking the lead? Yes, it's Uchiha Fugaku. The Chunin teacher covered his face. Hearing it, Hyaruzen has a weird face. Uchiha Fugaku, this child seems to be the father of Itachi in the comic. From this aspect, is it okay for him to be the one leading the funeral? No, Itachi is a comic character, so they can have a funeral. But why Fugaku? He thought for a while and said, you find Yuan and let him solve the child's affairs. This, Yuan-sama said, Uchiha has important things today, and he said he respects his son's decision. The Chunin teacher said weakly. After hearing it, Hyaruzen had a headache. Yuan, this guy also made trouble for him that made him scratch his head. As a result, a few more white hairs were scratched off. Damn it. Recently, I returned from recuperation but it started to fall again. He had a headache for a while and waved his hand and said, since they are willing, so let them make trouble. Yes. The Chunin teacher bowed his head and prepared to leave. At this time, Hyaruzen's brains glowed with a flash of light, and he immediately shouted, wait, you go to the Kurama clan to call Ikeban and let him go to preside over the funeral. That is my order. Ha. All right. The Chunin teacher didn't quite understand, but he did what he said and ran to the Kurama clan after going down. Itachi is the light in the dark. Although he is at dawn, his heart is on Konoha's side. All thoughts are for Konoha's sake. If children want to hold a funeral, it means that they approve of this spirit. It deserves encouragement. As for the reason that the Chunin teacher asked Ikeban to get up and preside over it. Why did these things happen? The root was in Ikeban. The kid had a lot of spooky ideas, so it would be best to let him take charge of the solution. Hyaruzen sat down and looked at the scene where Itachi pokes Sasuke again. It was touching, and he even cried. But the thought that the 5-year-old Fugaku was holding the funeral of his unborn child felt very strange. In the country of wind, in a dark cave. Uchiha Madara took the newly acquired comic and slowly flipped through page by page. He has 2 volumes in his hands, one is Jiraiya and Pain Battle, and the other is Itachi and Sasuke's Battle. The 6 Paths of Pain. Madara stopped at these pages. Jiraiya vs Pain, the comics are interesting, but it is more about making Madara have different ideas. He just thought about creating a puppet to fight to avoid the main body from suffering. As a result, when he was just thinking about it, in today's comic, Kurama Ikeban drew such a content, as if he had guessed what he was thinking. Damn. In the dark, a strange shadow swayed, seeming to be laughing. Madara snorted and turned the page over, not clinging to the 6 Paths of Pain, but continued to read. He also understands the Sage Arts and the Sage Mode. Back then, the strongest technique of Senju Hashirama was the Sage Mode. With one move of the Sage Arts with thousands of hands, his Susanoo and 9 tails were hammered to death. Even though he has his Shadow Limbo, but against Hashirama's Sage Mode and Arts, it becomes useless. If Konoha gets the power of the Sage Mode. He didn't dare to think further, just as Ikeban said, Madara is old after all, with little lifespan left, and his physical function will decline a little every time he fights. At this point, Uzumaki Mito is the same. Unconsciously, he read the whole volume. How is it? Black Zetsu sneered. Madara ignored him and picked up another volume to read. This book is a newly updated comic. If Black Zetsu didn't send it to him, he might not get it until tomorrow or even the day after tomorrow. Seeing the title page, Madara couldn't help frowning. On the title page, Itakai and Sasuke stand on two sides, and in the middle is a wild and unruly man with a strange sixtamo in his eyes. This is Madara himself. He had some guesses about the plot, and he understood Black Zetsu's intentions better, but at this moment Madara didn't say a word and opened the cover to read it. Itakai. Madara has a special sentiment towards this role. If Izuna was still alive, his life might be the same as Itakai, and he would do anything for his brother even if he was an enemy of Senju Hashirama. However, many things in the world often backfire. Madara failed to save his brother Izuna and even gave up revenge. He put his hand on the page of the comics and did not turn to the next page for a long time. It took a full minute or two before turning to the next page in silence. So similar. Whether it is Itakai or Sasuke. Turn page by page. Even though he lived for decades, this scene really touched the softest part of Madden's heart. It was precisely because he can relate that he understood better how painful Itakai's choice and mood were. This feeling, it felt like it was when Senju Hashirama asked himself to give up his hatred and join hands to build Konoha. A painful choice. Like Itakai, he loves his brother very much, but for the sake of peace, he gave up revenge and made Senju Tobirama the hero of Konoha, and failed to personally slash his enemy. But when it turned to Itakai to explain the experience of his, he couldn't help but sneer. I killed Izuna for the sake of his eyes. So that's how Senju Tobirama and his clan, full of losers, told the next generation. Black Zetsu could feel how Madara suddenly exuded a terrifying murderous aura, and Madara's eyes were like a sword. He pursed his mouth but said nothing, and continued to read it. The mystery of the Sixtamo Mangekyo is drawn on this, namely the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Will not lose light, the strongest pupil. Without mentioning the specifics, it is estimated that it is all that Kid Zone guesses. Of course, it is estimated that there are some masterpieces of Senju Tobirama in it. The Senju clan did not spend much time studying the Sharingan, especially the Mangekyo Sharingan. Upon reading it, Madara's movements of turning over the page became faster. However, Black Zetsu could feel that Madara's mood swings were very intense, and this story had a great impact on him, not just about the eternal Mangekyo, but also the story of Itakai and Sasuke. After he read it, Madara felt like Sasuke was Izuna. Back then, Izuna, like Sasuke, had vowed to surpass him since childhood, saying that one day he would definitely defeat him, but he could not beat himself until the day Izuna died. In the last scene, Itakai walked towards Sasuke strenuously. But Itakai can't kill Sasuke. Madara knows this very well, but seeing Itakai poke Sasuke's forehead with his finger, he felt a little fuzzy in his vision, as if he was short-sighted. Seeing it, Black Zetsu was surprised, but at the same time, he kept thinking about what words he would use to convince Madara. Madara under the mood swings was slightly better than usual. At least he thought so. Therefore, Madara, that kid in Konoha knows too much, now even the mystery of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Get lost. As soon as Madara raised his hand, a Shinra Tensei directly flew Black Zetsu out of the cave. Black Zetsu could avoid it with power, but he didn't dare. At that moment, Madara's killing intent was too blazing, and he felt that if he said one more word at this moment, Madara might really kill him. Even if he couldn't kill him, sealing him would be enough. The Rinnegan has many sealing techniques, such as the Phantom Dragon's 9 consuming seals. At this moment, there are only Itachi, Sasuke, and Izuna in Madara's mind. I should let Izuna. As a big brother, shouldn't it be right to let your little brother win? He covered his face as tears streamed down. As an older brother, Itachi is better than him. Black Zetsu didn't dare to enter the cave. He knew he was wrong. That guy didn't trust him at all. In this mood, he shouldn't say these things. Just when Black Zetsu was about to leave, a voice came from the cave. I don't care what your purpose is, and I won't hold you accountable for activities in my name, but you must show the value of letting me cooperate with you. Otherwise, get out early, or I will kill you. Of course, I know the secret about the demonic statue of the outer path. Black Zetsu said as he entered the cave again. Madara had calmed down and put the comic aside, but he obviously didn't intend to return it to Black Zetsu. He stuck his head with one hand and stared at Black Zetsu with his head tilted, waiting for him to tell the secret. The old man should have recorded that the essence of the demonic statue of the outer path is the body of 10 tails, but did you know that the 10 tails were actually the only sacred tree in the world before ancient times? Madara immediately sat upright after listening. The story of 10 tails and 9 tails is recorded on the stone tablet, so he is not surprised, but the second half. Divine tree. How is this possible? What tree can become such a powerful tailed beast? Black Zetsu sneered at his heart seeing his expression but still said, everyone knows that the old man is the ancestor of the ninja, so he is honored as the Sage of 6 Paths, but where did the power of the Sage of 6 Paths come from? I searched for half a lifetime and finally found some clues. It turned out to be the divine tree. Hearing it, Madara shines with excitement on his face. It turned out to be so. No wonder, so to speak, Black Zetsu's hidden intention is the divine tree, and he wants to rely on the divine tree to restore his pre-life power. Madara understood it thoroughly. He looked at Black Zetsu and sneered and said, you tell me this, so you are not afraid that you will never be able to recover your strength? I can't merge the 10 tails alone, let alone the divine tree. Compared with this, I hope to destroy all the descendants of Asura. Black Zetsu's tone was desperate and crazy at the same time. But Madara became silent when he heard it. Judging from his ability, Black Zetsu didn't seem to be lying of course, even so, he still had a considerable defense against Black Zetsu. If Black Zetsu relies on the demonic statue of the outer path or divine tree to restore its previous life power, it will be troublesome. P.S. Okay, here is the thing. If you're thinking Black Zetsu is lying, then you're wrong because what he said is also partially true. Why? Because Asura is the son of Horogromo who sealed his mother. That's why Madara Devil Fruit ability didn't detect any lie on his word. Itachi is a great ninja. In the Hokage office, Hiruzen gave a long sigh, unconsciously thinking of a reliable companion before. Uchiha Kigami. He was the first person to advocate integration into Konoha, and now Uchiha Yuan is, in a sense, he is the successor of the Kigami will. Like Itachi, Uchiha Kigami dedicated his all to Konoha. Even when he died, he was arranging Sasuke's life. If he dies in the hand of his brother, Sasuke, who kills the S-rank rebel, can return to Konoha, and Konoha will get a powerful ninja with an eternal Mangekyo. That's what Itakai thought. Before the change, Hiruzen would very much approve of Itakai's idea, but now, the example of Orochimaru in the comics makes Hiruzen reject this approach. The more people are arranged to walk according to their expectations, the more they will have different ideas. The same is true for Sasuke. He was not a simple child, he had his own thoughts and ideas, so how could he obediently follow Itakai's expectations? In the end, it may be counterproductive. But the eternal Mangekyo, Konoha would be terrific if they could tinker with this thing. Of course, it's only his delusion. Everyone knows it is too difficult to get these kinds of eyes. Even Madara has to rely on his younger brother's eyes to evolve his Mangekyo. Uchiha now only has Yuan and Ensho who can use Mangekyo. Even if Uchiha wants to try, Konoha will not agree. At this moment, there were a series of footsteps outside, followed by a Chunin who hurriedly entered his office in panic. Hokage-sama, no. It's not good. What happened? Hiruzen frowned slightly. He remembered that this Chunin was a teacher at the Ninja Academy, responsible for the education of those children. Those children are holding a funeral for Uchiha Itakai on campus. We can't help but come over and ask you. The Chunin teacher said, ashamed. The third Hokage shouldn't be asked for such trivial matters, but they really can't persuade the children. This time, it's Hiruzen's turn to be shocked. A funeral. He immediately asked again, who is taking the lead? Yes, it's Uchiha Fugaku. The Chunin teacher covered his face. Hearing it, Hiruzen has a weird face. Uchiha Fugaku, this child seems to be the father of Itakai in the comic. From this aspect, is it okay for him to be the one leading the funeral? No, Itakai is a comic character, so they can have a funeral. But why Fugaku? He thought for a while and said, you find Yuan and let him solve the child's affairs. This, Yuan-sama said Uchiha has important things today, and he said he respects his son's decision. The Chunin teacher said weakly. After hearing it, Hiruzen had a headache. Yuan, this guy also made trouble for him that made him scratch his head. As a result, a few more white hairs were scratched off. Damn it. Recently, I returned from recuperation but it started to fall again. He had a headache for a while and waved his hand and said, since they are willing, so let them make trouble. Yes. The Chunin teacher bowed his head and prepared to leave. At this time, Hiruzen's brains glowed with a flash of light, and he immediately shouted, wait, you go to the Kurama clan to call Akaban and let him go to preside over the funeral. That is my order. Ha. All right. The Chunin teacher didn't quite understand, but he did what he said and ran to the Kurama clan after going down. Itakai is the light in the dark. Although he is at dawn, his heart is on Konoha's side. All thoughts are for Konoha's sake. If children want to hold a funeral, it means that they approve of this spirit. It deserves encouragement. As for the reason that the Chunin teacher asked Akaban to get up and preside over it. Why did these things happen? The root was in Akaban. The kid had a lot of spooky ideas, so it would be best to let him take charge of the solution. Hiruzen sat down and looked at the scene where Itakai pokes Sasuke again. It was touching, and he even cried. But the thought that the 5-year-old Fugaku was holding the funeral of his unborn child, felt very strange. In the country of wind, in a dark cave. Uchiha Madara took the newly acquired comic and slowly flipped through page by page. He has 2 volumes in his hands, one is Jiraiya and Pain Battle, and the other is Itakai and Sajuke's Battle. The 6 Paths of Pain. Madara stopped at these pages. Jiraiya vs Pain. The comics are interesting, but it is more about making Madara have different ideas. He just thought about creating a puppet to fight to avoid the main body from suffering. As a result, when he was just thinking about it, in today's comic, Kurama Akaban drew such a content, as if he had guessed what he was thinking. Damn. In the dark, a strange shadow swayed, seeming to be laughing. Madara snorted and turned the page over, not clinging to the 6 Paths of Pain, but continued to read. He also understands the Sage Arts and the Sage Mode. Back then, the strongest technique of Senju Hashirama was the Sage Mode. With one move of the Sage Arts with thousands of hands, his Susanoo and 9 tails were hammered to death. Even though he has his Shadow Limbo, but against Hashirama's Sage Mode and Arts, it becomes useless. If Konoha gets the power of the Sage Mode. He didn't dare to think further, just as Akaban said, Madara is old after all, with little lifespan left, and his physical function will decline a little every time he fights. At this point, Uzumaki Mito is the same. Unconsciously, he read the whole volume. How is it? Black Zetsu sneered. Madara ignored him and picked up another volume to read. This book is a newly updated comic. If Black Zetsu didn't send it to him, he might not get it until tomorrow or even the day after tomorrow. Seeing the title page, Madara couldn't help frowning. On the title page, Itakai and Sajuke stand on 2 sides, and in the middle is a wild and unruly man with a strange sixtomo in his eyes. This is Madara himself. He had some guesses about the plot, and he understood Black Zetsu's intentions better, but at this moment Madara didn't say a word and opened the cover to read it. Itakai. Madara has a special sentiment towards this role. If Izuna was still alive, his life might be the same as Itakai, and he would do anything for his brother even if he was an enemy of Senju Hashirama. However, many things in the world often backfire. Madara failed to save his brother Izuna and even gave up revenge. He put his hand on the page of the comics and did not turn to the next page for a long time. It took a full minute or 2 before turning to the next page in silence. So similar. Whether it is Itakai or Sajuke. Turn page by page. Even though he lived for decades, this scene really touched the softest part of Madden's heart. It was precisely because he can relate that he understood better how painful Itakai's choice and mood were. This feeling, it felt like it was when Senju Hashirama asked himself to give up his hatred and join hands to build Konoha. A painful choice. Like Itakai, he loves his brother very much, but for the sake of peace, he gave up revenge and made Senju Tobirama the hero of Konoha, and failed to personally slash his enemy. But when it turned to Itakai to explain the experience of his, he couldn't help but sneer. I killed Izuna for the sake of his eyes. So that's how Senju Tobirama and his clan, full of losers, told the next generation. Black Zetsu could feel how Madara suddenly exuded a terrifying murderous aura, and Madara's eyes were like a sword. He pursed his mouth but said nothing, and continued to read it. The mystery of the Sixtomo Mangekyo is drawn on this, namely the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Will not lose light, the strongest pupil. Without mentioning the specifics, it is estimated that it is all that Kidzone guesses. Of course, it is estimated that there are some masterpieces of Senju Tobirama in it. The Senju clan did not spend much time studying the Sharingan, especially the Mangekyo Sharingan. Upon reading it, Madara's movements of turning over the page became faster. However, Black Zetsu could feel that Madara's mood swings were very intense, and this story had a great impact on him, not just about the eternal Mangekyo, but also the story of Itakai and Sajuke. After he read it, Madara felt like Sajuke was Izuna. Back then, Izuna, like Sajuke, had vowed to surpass him since childhood, saying that one day he would definitely defeat him, but he could not beat himself until the day Izuna died. In the last scene, Itakai walked towards Sajuke strenuously. But Itakai can't kill Sajuke. Madara knows this very well, but seeing Itakai poke Sajuke's forehead with his finger, he felt a little fuzzy in his vision, as if he was short-sighted. Seeing it, Black Zetsu was surprised, but at the same time, he kept thinking about what words he would use to convince Madara. Madara under the mood swings was slightly better than usual. At least he thought so. Therefore, Madara, that kid in Konoha knows too much, now even the mystery of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Get lost. As soon as Madara raised his hand, a Shinra Tensei directly flew Black Zetsu out of the cave. Black Zetsu could avoid it with power, but he didn't dare. At that moment, Madara's killing intent was too blazing, and he felt that if he said one more word at this moment, Madara might really kill him. Even if he couldn't kill him, sealing him would be enough. The Rinnegan has many sealing techniques, such as the Phantom Dragon's 9 consuming seals. At this moment, there are only Itakai, Sajuke, and Izuna in Madara's mind. I should let Izuna. As a big brother, shouldn't it be right to let your little brother win? He covered his face as tears streamed down. As an older brother, Itakai is better than him. Black Zetsu didn't dare to enter the cave. He knew he was wrong. That guy didn't trust him at all. In this mood, he shouldn't say these things. Just when Black Zetsu was about to leave, a voice came from the cave. I don't care what your purpose is, and I won't hold you accountable for activities in my name, but you must show the value of letting me cooperate with you. Otherwise, get out early, or I will kill you. Of course, I know the secret about the demonic statue of the outer path. Black Zetsu said as he entered the cave again. Madara had calmed down and put the comic aside, but he obviously didn't intend to return it to Black Zetsu. He stuck his head with one hand and stared at Black Zetsu with his head tilted, waiting for him to tell the secret. The old man should have recorded that the essence of the demonic statue of the outer path is the body of 10 tails, but did you know that the 10 tails were actually the only sacred tree in the world before ancient times? Madara immediately sat upright after listening. The story of 10 tails and 9 tails is recorded on the stone tablet, so he is not surprised, but the second half. Divine tree. How is this possible? What tree can become such a powerful tailed beast? Black Zetsu sneered at his heart seeing his expression, but still said, everyone knows that the old man is the ancestor of the ninja, so he is honored as the Sage of 6 Paths. But where did the power of the Sage of 6 Paths come from? I searched for half a lifetime and finally found some clues. It turned out to be the divine tree. Hearing it, Madara shines with excitement on his face. It turned out to be so. No wonder, so to speak, Black Zetsu's hidden intention is the divine tree, and he wants to rely on the divine tree to restore his pre-life power. Madara understood it thoroughly. He looked at Black Zetsu and sneered and said, you tell me this, so you are not afraid that you will never be able to recover your strength. I can't merge the 10 tails alone, let alone the divine tree. Compared with this, I hope to destroy all the descendants of Asura. Black Zetsu's tone was desperate and crazy at the same time. But Madara became silent when he heard it. Judging from his ability, Black Zetsu didn't seem to be lying, of course. Even so, he still had a considerable defense against Black Zetsu. If Black Zetsu relies on the demonic statue of the outer path or divine tree to restore its previous life power, it will be troublesome. P.S. Okay, here is the thing. If you're thinking Black Zetsu is lying, then you're wrong, because what he said is also partially true. Why? Because Asura is the son of Horogromo, who sealed his mother. That's why Madara Devil Fruit ability didn't detect any lie on his word. Madara and Black Zetsu, neither of them will completely trust each other. However, after revealing some of his goals, Black Zetsu gained a fairly limited amount of trust, enough to stop Madara from being passive. He would choose to do this because it had nothing to do with Akaban's genjutsu before. It's just the beginning. But when he saw it, Black Zetsu unconsciously thought of himself and his mother. So Kurama Akaban shall die. The two reached a cooperation and started discussing the next goal in the cave. Black Zetsu wanted to guide Madara to deal with Akaban, but Madara was obviously not fooled. He has his own plan. The Land of Wind at the moment hasn't got the update today. But their main goal this time is not Konoha's comic or anything, but the tailed beast. Right now, their Jinchuriki is Bunpyuku monk, a true monk, with the love of Buddhism. As long as they can use Shukaku power, they don't need to kill Bunpyuku. But when the tail beast is required to participate in the war, Bunpyuku's character becomes a stumbling block for Hidden Sand Village. Many hated the monks for his viewpoint. Therefore, the news that Zack is going to become a new Jinchuriki to participate in the war comes out. Almost all the higher-ups agree, including Ibizo. The substitution of Jinchuriki is already the general trend, and he cannot oppose it, otherwise, it will backfire. But after a few days of observation, he determined that there was a problem with Zack. He hasn't found out what's going on for the time being, but there are drastic changes in his personality and style. It is certain that someone has induced him, but Zack's decision has been recognized by the majority of ninjas. Before there is evidence, even to his sister Kyo, he can't say it. After hesitating for a few days, he finally decided to turn to Danza for help. Obviously, Danza knows something. Danza is not in Konoha. After being pitted by Akaban and severely beaten that day, Danza had planned to go back to training hard to take his revenge in the future. As a result, news from Hidden Stone Village came. Compared with the bizarre situation of Hidden Sand Village, Danza felt that the Hidden Stone Village is believable since they also have a grudge against Hidden Sand Village. So the layout on Ibizo is temporarily put down, and it is better to set off to Hidden Stone Village immediately. The Anbu is not in a hurry to find Danza. Danza had an order before leaving, that if Ibizo sent a letter to see him, they could let him wait for a while. And if Danza does not return in a few days, they can ask Akaban to solve the matter. So today, the Anbu has nothing to do. Akaban on the other side is not as free as the Anbu. It's because a teacher from Ninja Academy came to him with the third Hokage oral instructions, and he could only obediently listen to get up and come to ninja school with him. The funeral was very large. As soon as he entered the school gate, he saw a group of children on the big training grounds. These children were neatly dressed in black attire, but they were very neat and united. It's here. There is also a portrait and a flower basket in front, which make it look like the real thing. The teacher whispered. Akaban walked to the front with a weird look and saw the leader from a distance. It's Uchiha Fugaku. He was stunned for a moment when he saw him, to organize a funeral for your unborn child. Fugaku, you are also a talent. For sure, after this transpires, his eldest son will not be called Itakai anymore. Some children noticed Ikeban, and they trembled every moment. They are not afraid of their teacher. If something really happens, Uchiha Fugaku, the eldest son of the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, is their leader. They are accomplices at most, so they are not afraid. But Ikeban is in charge of the reserve department. The first batch of special training is over, and the special training of the reserve department is said to be like hell. No one will be allowed to enter the reserve department in the future. When everyone thinks of the fear that their brothers and sisters had when they mentioned it, all of them were very scared. Itakai slaughtered his whole clan and killed his parents. With the same surname Uchiha, he is undoubtedly sinful, but he didn't hate the village. In front of the village and the family who tried to make trouble. Fugaku read aloud. The children listened quietly and deeply agreed with it. The role of Itakai is very complicated. At first, everyone thought he was very bad, but later found him to have a difficult and hard life. Maybe he was not a good tribe member, family member, nor a great ninja. But as an older brother, he is the best. His brother complex is terrible. Ikeban had originally planned to go up, but when he heard these words, he immediately stopped and listened intently. The last time they met, he knew Fugaku was smart and precocious. Looking at it now, he doesn't know how this guy will be in the future, but Uchiha Yuan's son really has learned a lot. Obviously, Uchiha was the one who suffered from the disaster in the comic. But a result, he can say this paragraph without changing his expression. If it's just like this, it's fine, but he can be called tears down, and his words seem to be from the heart and deeply identify with Itakai's actions. Under the extremely suggestive and immature voice, there are many children sobbing. This scene really cannot be stopped. Moreover, the third Hokage order is not to prevent the funeral, but to lead the funeral. It seems the third Hokage also supports it. But Ikeban was secretly praising Fugaku's high psychological quality, but this little guy stopped speaking. He saw Ikeban and was a little stuck in fright, forgetting what to say next. Upstairs in the distance, Hiruzen was also watching the scene, and laughed out loud when he saw how frightened those kids were and said jokingly, "Ha ha ha, he should become a teacher with how those kids are afraid of him." "What should we do, Hokage-sama?" the Jonin on the side asked. Hiruzen laughed and then said, "I will go down and join in the fun." On the playground, the atmosphere suddenly became silent. For several seconds, no one spoke. Ikeban was stunned for a few seconds to react, then coughed lightly and said, "It's very good. Keep talking." This. Fugaku facing Ikeban has his mind blank. Keep talking, but what should I say? Finally, after thinking about it, he said, "I'm done." When Ikeban heard this, he had to walk up. Looking at the stage, the portrait of Itakai is very eye-catching and familiar, as if it was cut from the comic. The problem is that there are few large personal drawings of Itakai in the comics. It's too shabby. Ikeban separated a shadow clone for him to paint, then turned around. Fugaku said, "Very well, I will simply add one point. The role of Itakai is more complicated. He has made countless choices, and many choices are not well done. But in his position, all he can do is destroy everyone together, or save Sajuk and the village. This approach is great. From the perspective of the village, Itakai's behavior is of his great love, but if you change it to other places, others don't know, so they can't do it anyway. They can't do what they love so much, so Akaban only said that Itachi is great, and didn't even say that the children should follow suit. Of course, few children can understand his words. Everyone simply reads comics and has no experience or in-depth thinking. How can they understand these deep things, including those mentioned by Fugaku, are all things his father often said that he remembered. After saying this, Akaban looked back. The clone has already finished. After all, it's just a black and white portrait painting, it doesn't require much ink, it is not difficult to paint, it only takes a moment to complete. Akaban took it out and replaced the front portrait. Everyone cheered. The portrait was very large and delicate, dozens of times better than the previous one. Afterwards, he looked around for a while, coughed lightly and said, "Everyone, go back and continue your class, don't delay your class for these things. Do you understand?" Akaban's eyes flickered dangerously so that the children didn't dare to look at his eyes, and nodded frantically. Seeing it, Akaban was satisfied and got up to leave. Fugaku looked at Akaban's back and swallowed his saliva. After he left, he let out a long sigh of relief, and then, in his mind, there were many more things he wanted to say in an instant. There was another voice in the playground. Akaban is very helpless, these guys seem to have some misunderstanding about themselves. Forget it, I'm too lazy. He still has some jobs today, such as Naruto comics, and his goal today is still 10 chapters. Because the content of the next 10 chapters is connected with the content of yesterday and today, it seems incomplete if it is broken in half, especially the one where Naruto and Tsunade know that Jiraiya is dead. In addition, One Piece's comics began the Judicial Island chapter. Both sides are busy. But today he was called and woke up early, and there is still a lot of work time. Akaban returned to the comic shop, separated 4 shadow clones, and assigned the task, and he drew a couple of chapters and illustrations, and most of the work was done by the clones. When painting, he often heard the villagers outside talking about Itachi and Sasuke. Unlike children, everyone's feelings about Itachi are very complicated. It is difficult to distinguish good from bad at a time. It can only be said that Itachi is extremely successful as a big brother. In addition, the most discussed is the Mangekyo Sharingan. Before, the villagers only thought that the 3-tomo was the strongest, but some knew that there was a Mangekyo after it, but now they broke out something even more impressive: Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. At this moment, many people were very envious of Uchiha. Before the change, Uchiha had to float, and most of their arrogance came from this way. But now, no one in Uchiha is like that. On the one hand, everyone was beaten and knew that their situation was not good. On the other hand, Uchiha Yuan was well educated, so that everyone should not be proud and must be approachable and get along with the villagers. Therefore, not only did the Uchiha people have no opinion on the plot of the comics, but they discussed intensively with everyone and occasionally revealed some mysteries related to the Sharingan. Such as pupil power, who is the most genius in the family, etc. In this way, it seems that the Sharingan are not so superior to ordinary people. So firstly, Sharingan doesn't seem to be so aloof and remote to ordinary persons. Although they don't think of them well, they didn't hate Uchiha for that. Instead, they think many Uchiha clansmen are very interesting. Akaban listened in secret while drawing. He was in charge of Naruto and currently painting the moment Tsunade heard that Jiraiya died. The content of these chapters is the most complicated for emotional expression and requires a certain degree of meticulous expression. The content is relatively small, so the hardest part is left to himself, and painting this made it a little bit difficult for him. It needs to express emotion. So when he drew a page or two, he felt dissatisfied in many places. So he changed it several times before reluctantly acknowledging it. There are two hardest scenes to draw. One is the scene when Naruto comes back, and the second is when Tsunade loses her temper after hearing the news. Naruto's sadness and anger, Tsunade's deeply hidden sadness, in all kinds of memories, the helplessness of Tsunade were drawn vividly and thoroughly. The other part is that Naruto is alone, but Iruka comes over with a popsicle. Akaban modified it many times and finally tinkered with it for a long time. The clones have completed their task, but he just finished his. It was relatively late when he finished, it was close to the evening, so instead of letting other people in the clan take a trip, he asked the clone to deliver it with Flying Thunder God Jutsu. There was a special kunai that was brought over to the factory today. It was originally made by hand, but there was a lot of excess, so he gave it to Yamano Izumi. After going home for a meal, Akaban returned to his room and began to study the Rinnegan. Eternal Mangekyo is successfully on the redemption list and requires 5,000 points. In terms of ability, the Eternal Mangekyo is not much stronger than the Mangekyo, but it has no side effects and there is no risk of blindness no matter how it is used. This effect alone is worth this point. But after redeeming these, he glanced at the price of Rinnegan, it didn't seem to decrease too much. But he understood why for a few seconds. The Rinnegan comes from the Eternal Mangekyo stimulated by the 6 chakras. Madara's Rinnegan is of Indra chakra, and the cells of Hashirama provide the Asura chakra. After the 6 chakras are fused, the Rinnegan will appear. But he does not have these. The role of points exchange is to help Akaban extract Yang chakra and Yin chakra. Incidentally, it also helps to fuse 6 chakras and stimulate the eyes. So 10,000 points for Rinnegan is not expensive at all. Akaban has more than 60,000 points on hand, and 30,000 must be reserved for Bat Devil Fruit. The only thing that can be used is the remaining 30,000. Fortunately, redeeming the Eternal Mangekyo didn't require many points so he can redeem the Rinnegan. But the main reason for his hesitation is not the eyes, but the Hashirama cells. After the last test, it can be determined that the Hashirama cell with a price of 1,000 is a simple version that relies on its own fusion. After redeeming the thing, can he redeem the eyes for fusion and suppression? In addition, with this 1,000 price exchange, is Hashirama cell limited to one place, or does it spread to the whole body? Akaban is not sure. After thinking about it, he still did not choose to exchange Hashirama cells. Uzumaki clan are also Asura descendants, which is barely considered a poor quality substitute. In the case of uncertain side effects, there is really no need to rush to redeem it. After thinking about it, he immediately let the system evolve his Mangeki Sharingan to Eternal Mangeki Sharingan. The evolution of the eyes is very painful, it feels like someone is poking his eyeballs with a knife, but with strong mental power, he can feel the pupil power in his eyes is increasing. The pupil power of the Eternal Mangekyo is definitely stronger than that of the Mangekyo. After a while, the pain disappeared. Akaban covered his eyes and took a few breaths. There was a sting in his eyes. After slowly lowering his hands, he saw the 6 tomos in his eyes through the mirror. The 6 tomo patterns have 3 more patterns, which look more like a vortex, especially when it rotates. It looks like flowing water in a vortex, also like a slow rotating electric fan. He tried it. After activating the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, the Tomo state can still be returned to the normal Mangekyo or Tomo state. Should I redeem it in one breath? After hesitating for a second, he redeems the Rinnegan, and the next second, he feels a certain change in the chakra in his body. This kind of chakra is very special. Akaban's method of observing it through his system made him understand what is going on. The system extracts Ashura chakra from the physique of the Uzumaki family and extracts part of Indra chakra from the eyes of the Sharingan. This is due to the capabilities of the system. Without the system, even if Akaban had a Mangekyo or even transplanted Senju Hashirama cells, it is impossible to complete his Rinnegan. After the synthesis, he felt weak. After taking a look at the system panel, he quickly understood what was going on. Because he didn't have Senju cells, the system forcibly replaced it with Uzumaki clan's semi-sage body. After evolution, his body attribute dropped by 50 points. But at the same time, his mental strength increased by 10 points. He can't say whether it is the effect of eternal Mangekyo or Rinnegan, but the increase of his mental strength is a good thing for him. As for his physique dropped to 105 points and the price needed was also reduced. It only needed more than 12,000 points to replenish it. After redeeming a series of abilities, there are only more than 20,000 points left. It's not enough to exchange bat fruit, but he doesn't need to exchange it for the time being, so he doesn't need to worry more. The most worrying thing right now is whether he can deactivate the Rinnegan or not. He tried to control the pupil power of his eyes. At first, he was unsuccessful, but after trying for a long time, soon, the ripples of his eyes turned into a state of eternal Mangekyo, then turned into a Mangekyo, 3 Tomo, and it disappeared. Perfect. Akaban breathed a long sigh of relief. Fortunately he was able to return his eyes to normal. After redeeming Rinnegan, the system bestowed him with an attached memory, and the Rinnegan ability is described above. He found that his Rinnegan does not have special abilities such as Limbo, Border Jail, but when he was in his Rinnegan mode, he can use the power of Rinnegan as usual. It is not a Rinnegan created through Indra and Asura Chakra. Even if there is a system to help create a fake, the effect is still a little worse. Akaban understood the reason in his heart. As long as he redeems Senju Hashirama's genuine sage body in the future, he should be able to make up for the ability to automatically derive Rinnegan. In addition, improving his physical and mental power attributes to a certain level may be able to make up for it. After thinking about it for a moment, he stopped thinking about it. He has the Rinnegan right now, and he can at least compete with Madara if they meet again, and he won't become a mouse meeting a cat. After fulfilling the long-cherished wish, Akaban lay down and fell asleep. The comics are usually updated earlier than he wakes up, and the next day he wakes up, many people have already bought the comics, and some have even read a volume. But some people who are in a remote place only get it now. Such as Orochimaru. The book in his hand was still brought by Tsunade, by the way. Yesterday's comic, he didn't read it either. Comic. I don't have time to read this now, the research has reached a critical period. The voice of Orochimaru was exhausted. He has not rested since returning to the institute. It's very interesting, and you happen to be on the stage, take a break and rest. Tsunade said with a light smile. Me? Hasn't he already died? Orochimaru was stunned for a moment, he then approached her, took the comic in her hand and sat down. Tsunade glanced at the laboratory. Inside the room, there are cultists. These people were fused with the power of summoned snakes, showing scales, and other abnormal changes. With the help of the evil god chakra, they were not dead, but the alienation state consumed chakra all the time. When the evil god chakra is about to run out, Orochimaru will remove the alienated part. Therefore, some cultists have lost the evil god chakra and regained their sanity. Even so, they did not appreciate it, but felt that Orochimaru had taken away the power of the evil god given to them. In short, a bunch of lunatics. But Orochimaru didn't care about them as he kept turning the page. Sharingan is very attractive to him, but he is not very interested in the power of Sharingan at the moment. He is also very interested in the physique of Senju Hashirama, and he has carried out a considerable amount of research. It didn't take long for him to finally see the place where he appeared again. The eight-headed serpent rushing out of the curse seal. It was the second time he saw it, but it was still ugly. Orochimaru complained from the bottom of his heart, and then expressed his deep condolences for his exit again, and then, he got sealed again. He didn't think it was himself at all, so naturally, there was not much emotional disturbance. It's the second volume. After reading a few chapters, Orochimaru suddenly laughed softly. Why are you laughing? Tsunade felt very strange. She has read this story. There is nothing very funny, but there are many things that are very worrying, so she does not understand it. This Madara may be fake. Orochimaru pointed to the painting. He was thinking in his mind, and after a long period of indulgence, he said, from my part of the Sharingan research, the conditions for activating Mangekyo are very demanding. It can't be opened by a single Tsukuyomi. Also, Kakashi's Kamui came very well. Which is strange. You mean? Tsunade was stunned for a while. Why didn't I find it when I read it? Orochimaru thought for a while, and said his guess, it may be a Bito. As a reader, he can see many things that people in the comics can't see, and it is quite amazing to guess these things if so. He continued to look back, not hurriedly or slowly, very leisurely. Until the last two words. Orochimaru's hand paused for a few seconds, and then he continued to turn back. In the end, he couldn't help but let out a weird smile, and said with mixed emotion, as of now, you are the only one left. She's not me, am I like this kind of lonely star? Tsunade curled her lips. She was holding the research notes of Orochimaru in her hand, and she looked complaining, but in fact, she had quite some opinions on the plot. She has never won since she was a child, and when she won a few times then everything went wrong, and her relatives and partners had troubles, which literally promoted her as the lone star in the sky. Of course. There is one thing to say, this story is indeed very moving, and she even shed a tear. Tsunade herself was moved. At this moment, she seemed to feel something and looked at the door. He saw a man, but it seemed he was scared as he ran away. Tsunade stared at the man unkindly, frowned and said, what is the name of the guy at the door? Dan, it's the son of the ninja who we treated and mastered spiritualization before. Orochimaru reminded. He must have come to make fun of me, damn guy, it's Akaban's fault anyhow. Tsunade's face is red from anger. Orochimaru smiled without saying a word, put down the comic and continued to study. He understood that Tsunade was here to complain. Shouldn't you talk to Akaban about this? I will leave first, my research has been completed, and I don't need to come again. Tsunade waved away without comment. Thanks to the enlightenment from these cultists, she already has a rudimentary form of creation rebirth, and she also has a secret plan in her heart, but her technology has not yet reached the standard. The most difficult part of creation rebirth is to automatically restore the whole body. Jashinists have given Tsunade a lot of inspiration, otherwise, she may have to study for a long time before she can gain anything. After Tsunade left, Orochimaru continued his research. However, in his heart, he still thought of what happened in the comics. Life is really fragile. Jiraiya, who has Sage Mode, and Orochimaru, who has his 8-headed serpent jutsu, still cannot escape death. Maybe Orochimaru was not dead in the comics, but being sealed is not too much different. Moreover, the chaotic reincarnation space really makes him sick now. Forget it, I don't want to be that kind of person anyway. The young Orochimaru said in his heart. Thinking of this, he put the comic aside, and then looked at the door consciously, just to meet the staring eyes. He nodded and sneered in his heart. Although Akaban killed him in the comics, this incident, he didn't put it in his heart at all, and he even contributed a little to the flames. For example, a snake clone that went to Akaban in advance. Akaban had not received any news yet, but Tsunade's emotion is definitely turbulent, so he paid a little money to allow Tsunade to gamble, to distract her turbulent emotion. In general, there are surprises but no dangers. But then, he received news from both Orochimaru and Anbu at the same time. One is a letter from Orochimaru, and Anbu is about Danza. The negotiation on Hidden Stone Village was successful and Danza returned to the village. When the teacher comes back, he still wants me to go to Anbu. Is it possible that he wants me to escort the Jinchuriki and take a trip? Akaban thought for a while and got up to wash. In any case, he still has to go to Anbu, so he can learn about the conditions and situation of Hidden Stone Village. But Danza went back to Anbu, and immediately went to the Hokage building to report the situation. After all, the transaction with Hidden Stone Village had to be approved by the third Hokage. In the Hokage building, Danza sat on the chair in front of Hiruzen's desk, flipping through a page of comics in his hand, and Hiruzen holding the report he had just completed. The comics are still given by Hiruzen. Danza didn't care about it at first, but when he saw it, his heart gradually became uncomfortable. This plot, the good things are done by Hiruzen, and the bad things are done by my group. This brat, he is too much. Danza was annoyed in his heart. Even if the leader of Root became Mitokado Homura, a discerning person knew from a glance that the leader of this small group was him, Shimura Danza. But thinking about it carefully, what he did was really such a dirty and dark thing. About Uchiha extermination, even he himself felt that he was very suspicious. Damn. Danza's mood is quite complicated. Now he has some thoughts about becoming a Hokage, but he also wants to make Konoha stronger, and the Hokage's position indicates the incidental goal. But now, if he looks from another angle, how can the villagers agree to have the leader of darkness become a Hokage? He sighed softly, put the comic down, and then asked, about the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, can the Uchiha awaken it? It seems that this kind of power can only flow between brothers, so they can't. Hiruzen shook his head. After reading the report, the content is nothing more than the amount of gold and iron materials that Hidden Stone Village promised and 5 more practical Earth-style ninjutsu that Konoha does not have. These are just material transactions. Apart from this, the rest of the trade are strategic transactions, and due to the existence of Jinchuriki, the Konoha basically profited from this. Danza put down the comic and said, there are 3 kinds of ninjutsu, B rank, 2 C rank ninjutsu scroll. I have already got it, and now it is stored in Anbu headquarters. As for these strategic cooperation, Except for Hidden Cloud Village, just take a look. The cooperation between Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Rain Village should be no problem. Well, Hidden Cloud Village is strong, even if Hidden Stone Village is also strong, they are unwilling to face them directly. When the time comes, if Hidden Cloud Village starts a war against Konoha, they will not help to resist. Many cooperation on paper between villages are just talk, but Konoha has already made a lot of money on other projects alone. Hidden Stone Village can't help it. What can they do? They also take a shot to recapture their Jinchuriki, but they couldn't even find its shadow. On the other hand, not only did the Konoha defeat the Jinchuriki, but they also caught it alive. So they only admit it. However, it is conceivable that Ashi may not have a good time after going back. On the lighter punishment, he will be put under house arrest, but if it is on the serious side, he will definitely die and the Stone Village will have a new Jinchuriki. Danza talked roughly, then patted the comic book and said, I have something to do, let's go one step ahead. Here is your comic. Hiruzen seems to be smiling, but deep down he is gloating. It must be very refreshing to be arranged like this by his apprentice. Danza angrily threw the comic back, seeing his obviously floating face. Look at him taking pleasure in other people's misfortune. No matter what, he can't let Saruta be Hiruzen take him as a joke, so he said lightly, Akaban draws something pretty good here, but if your discipline will draw you someday, it's going to be a real joke. Cough 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 tilde how is it possible? Hiruzen choked when he heard it. Danza was definitely referring to Jiraiya. If he was drawn to Jiraiya's masterpiece Intimate Love in the Deserts, his fame would really be ruined. Jiraiya is indeed unreliable, but he wouldn't do it, right? No way. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that his future would be ruined. He hadn't disciplined Jiraiya recently, so it's hard to say whether he will do this. At this time, Danza had already slipped away. Only fools give their rival a chance to refute, and the best way to deal with it is to stop the opponent from refuting and not give the opponent a chance to fight back. But if it is not depressing, it must be fake. Danza must be interested in the position of Hokage. This obsession came from the second Hokage exam questions that year. He always felt that he was too timid at the time, which caused him to miss the position of Hokage. But if he asked his disciple, Akaban would say that he is thinking too much. How could such a smart person like Senju Tobirama choose the next Hokage heir temporarily? The candidate must have been determined a long time ago. That question is just the final test. From the beginning, Danza's chances were not great. The Anbu had sent someone to find Akaban before, so Danza didn't go to the comic shop, and went straight back to Anbu headquarters. Akaban has been waiting for a while. Although he went back to the comic shop in the middle, with Flying Thunder God Jutsu, he is still much faster than Danza running back and forth. After waiting for a long time, Danza finally came back. Entering the door, Danza saw the open window above Akaban, and the dazzling light came in from the window, and he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Teacher, your side is too dark. Close it, it's too bright. Danza covered his eyes with his hands, and entered the dark part where there was still such a bright spot, which violated his dark aesthetics. Akaban had to close the window as he said. Danza sat down and said angrily, did you read it all? I just turned it over, didn't see much. On Danza's table, there are 3 information scrolls. One is a deal in terms of resources, and the other 2 are ninjutsu. Danza's skill in negotiations is still great, and these conditions alone are quite rich. I don't really care if you read it all, this position will be yours sooner or later, but Uchiha is still in my hands, maybe you will be the one who will order their extermination in the future. Danza's face was still cold, making people unable to see his thoughts, but the irritated words almost popped out. As long as it was an individual, he could hear his dissatisfaction. Didn't you just come back? When did you finish reading the comics? Akaban sighed regretfully, but was not too scared, because he didn't feel any malice from Danza. These words were mostly jokes. He rolled his eyes and flattered and said, "How can I? Your life is boundless, and the position of Anbu minister will always be yours." HMMP. Danza snorted angrily, hearing his nonsense, then took another note from below and threw it to him. Akaban glanced at it, and written above is Ibizo of Sand Village asking for help. It is certain that Madara has controlled the hidden Sand Village third Hokage. You are a master of Genjutsu. If you are allowed to control Zack, can you control him for a long time without sound? Danza asked seriously. In terms of Genjutsu, Konoha's strongest is Akaban, so when he returned to the village and saw this note, he called him over. Akaban thought for a few seconds and said, "It's not difficult, because at this time their second Kazekage shaman had an accident, and Zack mental loopholes were very large, and Madara could control even the tailed beasts back then. There must be a technique that can control others without too much supervision." Danza put down the note and nodded slightly after thinking for a long time. If so, as long as he explained that Madara was still alive, Ibizo should understand what he meant. He wrote a note and gave it to his subordinate Anbu ninja, and then said to Akaban, "I will send the Jinchuriki back in a few days. Since you have the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, I will leave it to you." Of course, Akaban is fine with it. If he doesn't agree at this moment, isn't he just asking for a hard task later? Moreover, there are not many ninjas who have the strength to escort a Jinchuriki in Konoha, especially the one who can detect Black Zetsu or escape from Madara's hands. Only those who have the Flying Thunder God Jutsu can do it. However, after he agreed, he said in passing, "Teacher, the spiritualization technique is very useful in the battle with the Sand Village. Is there any possibility of promoting this technique? It's difficult. If it can be promoted, I will do it that year." Danza shook his head. However, Akaban reminded him that there was a ninja in the village who could use spiritualization. Kato Dan. Although he is only a Chunin, his ability would really be very useful when fighting against the Sand Village. Okay. Akaban didn't mention it, but after hearing this answer, he changed the subject, and after a few conversations, he found an excuse to return to the comic shop. In the Land of Wind, a small group of people, led by the third Kazekage, quietly went to a hidden place. This is where Shukaku is imprisoned. Monk Bunpyuku was sitting in the place of imprisonment and chanting. When he heard the sound of footsteps, he paused slightly, but when he felt the air around these people, he became a little confused. After a second or two he thought of a possibility, then he continued chanting. Kyo glanced at Zack and saw that he didn't mean to speak, so she stepped forward and said, "Master Bunpyuku. Everyone, can I finish reading the last passage?" Monk Bunpyuku smiled faintly. He knows very well that Zack and the others are here with a murderous aura, and it is estimated that they are going to take Shukaku from his body. As a monk, he is not afraid of death. However, Shukaku will surely become a weapon of destruction in the hands of Zack and the others, and he doesn't want to see this. After reading the last passage of his life, he spread his hands and glanced at the palms of his left and right hands. receiving on one hand, heart on the other hand, and together it's love. The master has suppressed Shukaku for Land of Wind for more than 10 years. Hidden Sand Village will never forget your credit. The temple to which you belong will surely continue to praise you. Zack said lightly. Praise, fame and fortune are all passing things. I just hope that Kazekage-sama will not use Shukaku to kill more, and the old monk will be satisfied. The monk Bunpyuku put his hands together. Today it's not the calamity tribulation of the old monk, but the day the old monk gets out of the cage. I just hope you can suppress your hostility in the future, and don't let strength blind you. The first half of the last sentence is for Shukaku inside his body, and the second half is for the young Kazekage. This is the love of monks. Except for Zack, everyone was silent. After a long time, a roar sounded from the imprisonment. It was Shukaku, but in the end, it gradually went out, obviously suppressed. In a cave somewhere in the Land of Wind, Black Zetsu appeared with many comic books wrapped in darkness and put the Naruto comic in front of Madara. Madara reached for it, and then asked, "How about the handover of the tailed beast in Sand Village?" It was very successful. This generation of Kazekage was very strong. With the help of Kyo's sealing jutsu, they quickly resealed Shukaku again, but it seems that Shukaku is not happy that he has changed his home. After all, this Bunpyuku has some temper like that old man. Black Zetsu said lightly. He always mentioned Sage of Six Paths in his words, deepening the impression of his Indra identity in Madara's mind again and again. At least for now, Madara has gradually begun to accept that he is Indra, right? Cowardly and useless kindness cannot achieve true peace. Madara's tone was cold, while reading the comics boredly. The battle between Itakai and Sasuke made him very touched, but his mood also returned to coldness. In the comic, Sasuke is indeed too immature. After turning a few pages, he knew that this stupid child was definitely going to be crippled by Madara. Turning page by page, Madara couldn't help but let out a sneer. Amaterasu in a mere poultry, why use such a troublesome countermeasure? A direct sealing technique can eliminate the damage of Amaterasu. In addition, this Madara looks too fictitious. It is a counterfeit in any way. It seems that this face is probably the kid who was crushed to death by a rock. Afterwards, the masked man began to perform, and he successfully tamed Sasuke with a flicker, allowing him to join Akatsuki, or buy one get three free and become a snake team by himself. Madara said thoughtfully, a simple lie is easy to reveal, but a mixture of true and false lies cannot be easily seen. Of course, Black Zetsu didn't have any fluctuations in his heart. He had read the comics in advance, and of course he knew what was drawn, so he should have said this word towards Madara in the comic. Thanks to this, Madara did not hear any mood fluctuations. He continued to flip page by page without comment, and it didn't matter if he didn't detect anything. The days were still long. As long as his abilities continued to develop, one day he would know more secrets of Black Zetsu. As for the last page, as Konoha's enemy, Madara didn't feel any sorrow, and he read it blankly, then closed his eyes and stared at Black Zetsu and said, "Next time remember to bring the other comic called One Piece." Black Zetsu looked dumbfounded. "When did I become a professional errand man for you?" Without waiting for him to speak, Madara continued, "It's been a long time since I had anything to eat. There is nothing to eat here in the desert. Remember to bring some fruits and other food." Black Zetsu is a little angry. "I am the son of the ancestor of Chakra and the brother of Sage of Six Paths. I am not an errand boy that you can ask to buy things for you, and this person is still a descendant of his own generation. Bastard. My puppet has become a Jinchuriki. I want to find an opportunity to strengthen my control over him. And I can't get out with my body. You can help me do errands, right? Don't worry, leave it to me. Konoha quickly got news about what's happening in the hidden sand village. This is due to the fact that there is a consultant elder from the sand village giving them information that made the contact speed very fast. Ibizo will sell the village's information so simply, mainly because he got Danza's reply. Madara. There was only one word, but it shocked him no less than the destruction of the hidden sand village. This word represents an insurmountable tale, a legend like Senju Hashirama, making the other Shinobi village not dare to put their fangs on Konoha. Don't say that Ibizo is a coward, but even if he resurrected the two Kazekage, they can only be abused in front of Madara. When such a monster targeted the sand village, as the Anbu minister, he was instantly stressed. Fortunately, he understood one thing. Konoha told him so eagerly that there must be some plots happening, and the two villages have a superficial alliance contract, so joining forces is undoubtedly the best choice. After Akaban's suggestion, Kato Dan had a new mission. He was transferred to Anbu, organized into an Anbu operation team, and headed to Hidden Sand Village for reconnaissance and assassination missions. When Orochimaru heard about it, he expressed guilt and almost in tears when he saw him off. In order to express his apology, he is responsible for helping to perfect the last key point of the puppet, allowing the puppet to have a certain ability to act on its own. Very simple machine. In fact, after being attacked, it will stimulate its maximum speed to escape. For others, this kind of mecha is useless, but the weakest ninja who masters the art of spiritualization weakness is their main body, and this kind of mecha is just right. Dan was very happy, there was no depressed color on his face, and even told Orochimaru that he wanted to ask him to help solve this problem that day, but he didn't dare to mention it and left immediately after seeing Tsunade. Akaban didn't know what's happening, and even if he knew it, he wouldn't take it seriously. During the war, he himself has to go to the front line, so what can he say? For example, Akaban now takes over Danza's mission to escort the Jinchuriki to Hidden Stone Village. Danza is very considerate and leaves a special kunai on Hidden Stone Village. As long as Akaban chakra is enough, he can even fly directly to Hidden Stone Village. However, the consumption of bringing ordinary ninja using Thunder God Jutsu chakra is not too large, but for Jinchuriki, flying from Konoha to Land of Rivers, I am afraid that it will consume a lot of chakra. Without a choice, they have to walk. In order to prevent Little Ashi from not cooperating, Akaban also personally gave a set of Naruto comics and One Piece to him, which was regarded as the last gift, and at the same time used it to pass the time. My lord, can you let me go? Ashi was in a depressed mood. He knew that he would probably die when he went back. Anyway, he had a bad life. It would be better to die than to go back and be despised and imprisoned. But after reading the comics, he suddenly didn't want to die. It's impossible. Akaban glanced at him and said indifferently, "Do you want to walk by yourself, or do I control you to walk?" Ashi knew that Akaban was a master of genjutsu, and his genjutsu was very powerful. Before defeating him, he used genjutsu, water style and thunder style jutsu. He is a powerful ninja with terrifying abilities. So he chose to go by himself. In this way, at the end of his life, he can finish reading the comics at hand, at least without regrets. Obviously Ashi thinks too much. Naruto and One Piece are not over at all. How could he die without regret? At the border of the Fire Country, Akaban estimated that he would probably be able to use Thunder God Jutsu to get to Logue Town, so he patted him on the shoulder and asked him to put away the comic book first. In the next second, Flying Thunder God Jutsu. When they appeared at the land of River, Akaban didn't stop, and continued to walk towards Hidden Stone Village. Ashi didn't dare to run. Akaban was too strong for him to run. There are still comics to read now, and if he runs, the comics will be gone. Along the way, he was calm and steadily leaning his head. While reading the comic, he continued walking on the road. He was nourished by tailed beast chakra. His physical strength was not bad. Although he was a few years younger than Akaban, when they arrived at the Land of Rivers border he didn't feel tired at all. At this time, Ashi saw Akaban stop. He vaguely understood, and it must be the same as before, using that kind of jutsu to teleport. So, please wait a moment, let me finish reading this all first. Ashi sat down and accelerated the speed of reading comics. The content of the plot was very attractive to him. Both Naruto's strength and Gaara's transformation made him very touched. Maybe I lack a friend like Naruto, he thought with regret. A Jinchuriki can give a lot of points, so Akaban is happy to let him read the comic first, and Onaki is not a good person. To be precise, purely good people are not in the film. The same goes for Onaki. This trip is said to be the escort of Jinchuriki, but the reason why Danza made Akaban responsible for the trip is to prevent Onaki from doing dirty tricks on Konoha, so he needs to prepare more chakras. After reading volume by volume, Ashi became more and more depressed. After a long time, he finally finished reading it all. Akaban-sama, can the ninja world be peaceful like in the comic? Or will Jinchuriki's status remain like it is now? Ashi is a person with his own thoughts. Even though he is very young now, he still has a lot of thoughts about the status of Jinchuriki, and most of what he says now is what he thinks in his heart. He longed for peace and longed for Jinchuriki to be treated correctly. Akaban pondered for a long time and shook his head gently and said, "Peace is always only temporary. As for Jinchuriki, maybe, but if you ask the comics, it will say yes. Really, I wish there was someone like Naruto in the world." Ashi smiled sadly, got up and patted his pants. "You can start," Akaban reminded and said, "Don't you want to read One Piece?" "No, it's not over anyway, I don't want to die with two regrets," Ashi said as he stood beside him. Akaban put his hand on his shoulders and mobilized chakra in his body to move to the position where Danza placed the special kunai. The location after the teleportation is on a mountain top far away from Hidden Stone Village. From here, you can see the position of Hidden Stone Village. Ashi has a complicated complexion. This is Hidden Stone Village and his hometown. Not long after Akaban arrived, a figure appeared beside him. Konoha's ninja, and seeing the two of them, the Anbu of Hidden Stone Village paused and then disappeared quickly. Akaban could sense that he didn't leave, but was hiding. In addition, many ninja from Stone Village rushed out quickly, and the number was about a few dozen. Judging from their presence alone, most of them were of special jounin or high-level jonin. Before long, a dwarf arrived first. He flew from the sky. The third Sashikage, Onaki. As expected, this kunai was dropped by Danza deliberately. "I didn't expect that after the death of the second Hokage, someone will be able to master Flying Thunder God Jutsu." Onaki looked down from above. "Don't fly on my head," you are not a woman. Akaban couldn't help but uttered a word, then raised his hand, and in an instant there was a dazzling thunder, dark clouds in the sky. In the blink of an eye, a flash of lightning burst into the air. Onaki was shocked and quickly avoided the thunder and lightning. But next, he found that he had been hit by some kind of genjutsu. Next, he fell from the sky and fell straight to the ground. Geika tilde. Sashikage-sama, are you okay? A group of Anbu arrived, some of them woke Onaki, and some wanted to scold Akaban, but there were also many Anbu ninjas who saw the rocks shattered by the thunder on the side, so they quietly pulled the sleeves of their companions to stop them from continuing provoking the little devil. Ashi is not surprised. Even he and the mysterious man would be defeated by his genjutsu. Although Onaki's strength is very strong, with Akaban's genjutsu alone, no one can resist him, and even if there is a strong ninja in the stone village, with his flying thunder god jutsu, no one can stop him from leaving. Onaki stood up forcibly and said with a relaxed look, "This little devil is really unfriendly. I just used ninjutsu to fly in the air. You have to use illusion and thunder against me." He. Akaban smirked and said nothing. According to his observation, Onaki fell from the sky unsuspectingly during the operation and seemed to twist his waist. Although he is young and strong now, he can quickly recover from strong support, but it is troublesome to leave internal injury in the face after being humiliated by a kid. Out of humanitarianism, Akaban apologized and reminded in a friendly manner, "I apologize, Sashikage-sama, I didn't hold back my strength. By the way, I know some medical skills. Do you want me to check your body for injuries? You look hurt from that fall." "No, I'm a Sashikage, and this little thing." "Well, let's talk about business first. The supplies have been sent to Konoha and are now on the road, and these are the remaining 3 types of ninjutsu." Onaki pretentiously threw the scroll with ease, showing that he was in perfect condition. There are 3 kinds of B-rank hidden stone village unique earth-style ninjutsu. They are extremely valuable, far from being comparable to money. Akaban checked it and put it away after confirming that it was correct. Everyone in Hidden Stone Village has seen Akaban's strength, coupled with the threat of the flying thunder god jutsu. Everyone suddenly has no extra thoughts and trades obediently and honestly. As for Ashi, he was satisfied that he could read so many comics before he died, but unfortunately, he couldn't see the finale. He is Jinchuriki, or a rebel who was caught rebelling against the village. Therefore, his ending is beyond doubt. Then, these 2 sets of comics, I will give it to you guys as a gift. What you do with it is up to you. Goodbye. Akaban didn't intend to control Ashi. If he dared to rebel, he must pay the price of being caught. Konoha grabs him for the purpose of trading and not to absorb him, so he has no position to help Ashi. Showing him comics is already the greatest kindness. With a smile on his face, Onaki watched Akaban leave with flying thunder god jutsu. Originally, according to the plan, he would arrange a ninja to grab the ninjutsu scroll back, but now that they have seen Akaban's strength, everyone has no such thoughts. They all looked at Onaki and asked, "My lord, next. Help me first. I twisted my waist to avoid the lightning of that little devil. I didn't expect a genjutsu that made me fall from the sky." Onaki said. A cold sweat oozed from his forehead. In front of Akaban, he didn't want to lose face. After all, he was still a man of life, and also a Sashikage. It would be too humiliating to reveal that a 14-year-old child made him suffer a big loss. And what's worse was his action of throwing the scroll just now made the injury worse. "Go back to the village, by the way, bring back this bastard and the comics. Anyway, the resources are exchanged, so it can't be wasted. Onaki glanced at Ashi darkly. If it weren't for him, they wouldn't sacrifice so much, and even spend a lot of resources to redeem him from Konoha. But the most important thing is my waist. Onaki cursed as he was clutching his painful waist. This was the first time he was tortured by back pain when he was young, and he secretly hated Akaban. If it wasn't for that devil, this wouldn't have happened. Only one person came back, but in order to avoid using his Yin Seal's chakra, Akaban still chose to transfer from Land of Rivers, and by the way, meet Kakuzu to understand the situation. Kakuzu was tortured by Madara before. So now he is afraid that Madara will find him, so he has changed his hiding place. And he will never set foot on Loki Town again unless necessary. So in order to find him, Akaban spent a lot of effort. The new base of Kakuzu is in the wilderness. The location of his base has followed his usual style and is opened on the edge of a swamp. It's very smelly here, but there are no people coming to this place at normal times, which is the best place to hide. And as a great ninja, he can often endure things that ordinary people can't stand. That's why Kakuzu has the potential to become great. Akaban pinched his nose, resisted the odor and walked in, and found that Kakuzu was tinkering with things in the corner. What are you doing? It is you. Kakuzu was taken aback, but after discovering that it was Akaban, he recovered his composure instantly. Akaban walked over and saw a middle-aged man who was bound by a tentacle and fell into a coma. And there is no problem from its appearance. Like Sujitsu in your comics, he will suddenly run wild and become very strong after he transforms, but his form is obviously not that complete. You think he is about 30 or 40 years old, but according to my investigation, he is only 20 years old this year. Kakuzu explained it to Akaban. 20 years old. But he looked old. But Sujitsu didn't have such a big side effect at the time. Thinking of this, he took a closer look. The man's body was bound by some chains. Obviously, this is what Kakuzu used when he was crazy, but obviously, it didn't work. He squatted down and took a look with medical knowledge and special methods, and he understood the reason. First of all, this man is not a ninja and will not extract chakras by himself. Secondly, his will is not particularly strong. In the anime, Sujitsu was originally not a ninja, but he tried very hard to restrain himself, and met Kimimaro and Orochimaru. After that, he must have learned how to extract chakras and control the sage chakras. But this man is different. When entering sage transformation, the curse seal will roughly extract the natural chakra on its own. The side effects are similar to the situation where the system helps Akaban forcibly extract Asura chakra, which leads to a drastic decline in physical fitness. If things go on like this, it is not surprising that his life force is being consumed, which makes him look older than his real age. However, Akaban is more concerned about Kakuzu. This man with big eyebrows and big eyes is still doing research. Humph, don't think of me as that idiot in the comics. Kakuzu seemed to have guessed what he was thinking and replied with a sneer, apparently worried about the scene of his sudden death in the comics. Then what did you research? His physique is very special. It should be the same thing that can perform the kind of curse in your comics. As for why he has this physique, I suspect that it may be affected by some powerful and strange power. Kakuzu also squatted down, patted the man's face roughly, and awakened him from his coma. As soon as he woke up, he fell into a frenzy. So, Kakuzu slapped him again until he fainted, and then shrugged to Akaban. This is too crazy. Will he automatically enter that state when he wakes up? He thought for a while and thought of several possibilities. The power of this curse seal comes from Ryuchi Cave. Orochimaru found the whereabouts of Ryuchi Cave by studying the source of Sujitsu's sage body. So this man being in a frenzied state the moment he wakes up is maybe related to his weak willpower, or maybe the Ryuchi Cave is not far from here. Thinking of this, Akaban stood up as he searched the cave, a little worried about where a snake would suddenly pop out from somewhere. Before, those snakes on Ryuchi Cave tried to get him over through Orochimaru, although he was not too afraid of those snakes. But the thought of being near the lair of those snakes made him have goosebumps. Maybe it was around here. I sent my earth grudge fear out for a long time, but it resulted in me losing one heart. Kakuzu said as he stared at the middle-aged man in a bad tone. Judging from his expression, if Akaban did not come, the heart of this middle-aged man would probably be on Kakuzu's back now. Don't. This man is useful to me. About your heart, I will send someone in exchange. Although he said that, he actually didn't plan on studying this man when there is a mad scientist on his side. As for the heart, Konoha had a bunch of cultists, and each of these cultists slaughtered a lot of people, and he would not have any psychological burden on giving them to Kakuzu. That'd be good. Kakuzu didn't say anything about Akaban's proposal and agreed to it. Akaban himself is not clean, he just turns a blind eye to these things. Anyway, no one planned to harm Konoha. Next, he and Kakuzu both chatted for a while about the sales of One Piece, and then consulted the whereabouts of the red-haired boy. The result is obvious, no news at all. Black Zetsu hid the kids very well. At least the group under Kakuzu's hands traveled halfway through the ninja world, and they couldn't find the red-haired boy who was alone. And he met this middle-aged man when he was searching for the red-haired boy. Which is a totally unexpected gain. Since there was no news from the Uzumaki children, Akaban took the dividend and turned around to go home with the middle-aged man. Yesterday, in order to eliminate Tsunad's anger, he had given a lot of his remaining money, so he had to find Kakuzu. Although this guy has special abilities, he is not much different from ordinary people when he is not in a rage, so Akaban easily brings him back to Konoha. But the distance is far, so it still consumes a lot of chakras. Arriving at the institute, the middle-aged man was handed to Orochimaru for training after a short explanation. Then Akaban went back to the village to rest, and arranged a clone to draw the update. Because of the mission, there is only one shadow clone left in the store. So there are only 5 chapters for both Naruto and One Piece. Fortunately, the problem is not big. The 5 chapters for Naruto are relatively little, but its content is more than enough. On one hand, Naruto is practicing in the Sage mode, and on the other hand, the Sasuke team goes to capture Killer Bee. The Sage mode is relatively unusual to most people, except for a few who understand the Sage mode. And Orochimaru and Tsunade are among those people who knew the Sage mode. They all know what the Sage mode is, and even the training process of Mount Myoboku, they have also heard it from Jiraiya after asking nicely. As for the third Hokage and Danza, they had asked Akaban and Orochimaru about it a long time ago, and when Fukasaku Sage come to meet Akaban, the third Hokage also consulted him with it, and they understood the serious side effects of Sage mode. However, the following plot is different. From here, Naruto is close to completing his Sage mode, and Naruto's classic scene will also be staged with the 6 Paths of Pain appearance. Yes, it's the invasion of Konoha. This section is quite exciting. When the 6 Path Pain made a shot, they almost wiped out Konoha from the ninja world. If Naruto had not appeared, persuade Nagato with his talk no jutsu and let Nagato perform Samsara of heavenly life technique, perhaps Konoha's leader would become Danza. Talking about Danza. In these chapters, Danza really appeared on the scene. He insidiously killed the contact frog of Mount Myoboku in an attempt to prevent Naruto from returning to Konoha. Akaban fell into deep thought. Although this was originally the story of Danza, Danza is his teacher right now, and there is a huge gap between now and the future. The most important thing is right now he is his teacher. So it's only right to switch roles with my Takado Homura. Yes, let's do that. Of course, it is not Akaban's business how the villager will look at my Takado Homura after passing the blame to him. He can only say, "Teacher, I tried my best." That's it for this part guys, hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. And also tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation. Thanks for watching.